What is happening out there, Rotoscouts baseball fans? Happy Friday, gang. There goes Joker right on cue. He was awake. I don't know why it scared him so much. It just freaks him out when I start yelling in here, I guess. Cracked me up yesterday, cracked me up again today. He just takes off like a shot. Anyway, hope your Fridays are going well out there. Should be a really interesting slate to talk through. A little bit late in the afternoon for us to be getting started on a day with a 12-game slate. But here we are. We're going to try and make decent pace for us through this. Hopefully everybody's work days are finishing up. You got some time to talk baseball. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of activity in the chat today. I don't think anybody hit the triples play yesterday. Asked for you guys to drop comments into the after the video to make your prediction on who would triple on that 4-gamer. Don't think we had any triples overall. We had a few entries, but I don't think anybody connected. If I'm wrong, let me know. I know somebody picked Perdomo. Somebody had Carlos Cortez. Don't think we had any winners. Guys who won on the strikeout props the day before, though, get in touch with me. Let me know. You guys are entitled to that free week. We'll throw another one in for today. We'll do a, what should we do? Big 12-gamer. As I'm thinking about it, check out rotoscouts.com. That's the website we're talking about. Projections, content, MLB, NBA, NHL, and NFL main slates, all in under $1 a day for everything. No per sport fees, no nonsense. Projections across the board for every single main slate, plus deep content for MLB, deep content for NFL, where I go a little bit over the top, in my opinion, with the time that it takes for my weekly write-ups. Game by game. We do a lot of published content on the site for NFL, which is almost on top of us already. It's pretty unbelievable. I was complaining about it the other day, but just the number of sites as you go around the fantasy industry that are just like NFL splash all over the front page, and then like bottom right corner is baseball. You go over to Fantasy Pros, they sort to NFL automatically all summer long. Even like in March, it was going straight to NFL. You have to like drop down menu, select on their new version of their site to get the MLB. It's kind of a pain in the neck. I like the old version of your site better, Fantasy Pros, if you're out there. Those guys do good work over there, though. Anywho, Stephen B's here. Cujo's here. House is here. What's going on, gang? Good to see everybody. We'll dive in. I was killing a couple minutes there waiting for people to pile in. Just updated the runs board. There we go. So, again, 12-gamer on both sites. Pretty deep pitching slate. We've got the return of Gerrit Cole. We've got Jacob deGrom looking pretty dominant up at the top, but we've got a lot of guys. Let me bounce back to that front page, actually. There's a broad swath of guys between like 27 and 30 fantasy points. FanDuel scoring, 13 and 15, 13 and 16 DraftKings scoring. And then not a bad group of value guys right behind that in like the 25-point range, a lot of whom could succeed their way into the top tier. It's a really interesting deep pitching slate, and that's having a bit of an influence on the overall runs board. You can see how shallow this is as far as so many teams projected in just, the upper mid 3s, low 4s, only 2 teams above 5, nobody in the 4-7. So it's the 5-4-0 on the Braves, who look spectacular going up against Dickie Lovelady and Miles Michaelis, and then a 5-4-0 total for those Diamondbacks in a 9-run game. You do have some interesting overall game totals, right? There's 8.5, 8.5 through there, 3/8 up top. Yanks pulling a mid-4 implied total. The Blue Jays pulling a mid-4. But between these mid-5s, it's a full run down to the next totals, 4.5 runs. There's nobody in that like 4-7s, 4-8s, low 5s. So it's kind of have and have-nots on the board today. And the have-nots are by far more abundant. Getting into the matchups, Nick Martinez going up against Gerrit Cole. Cole made a solid handful of rehab starts, 6 of them, in fact. Was getting up to regular velocity in the final few. Was getting out to extended innings, 5 innings, 5 1/3 in the last 2 specifically. Struck out 8, struck out 6. Clip a couple games back, he plunked a kid who hit a home run off of him in the minor leagues. Gerrit Cole's a gamer. But all signs point to a mostly complete outing here. I didn't really check down his innings pitch projection so much. Gerrit Cole's pretty precious. I think he's basically ready to go, pretty fully unleashed here. Not a great matchup. The Rays have just been frisky, scoring runs all year. They're good at getting on base and scratching out runs, but Cole's one of the best in the business. He does project down slightly lower than some of the others in the return. It's having an impact from the Rays end, and it's also not his, like I said, I didn't limit it, but it's not his complete innings projection, if that makes sense. Just the way that it's set up. So he's slightly lower, but I think shares ceiling with everybody. On the Nick Martinez side, I think we're just drawing Yankees bats. They look better than that 4.34 implied total on the board. There's plenty of power showing. It's the Yankees, that deep lineup. They get Jose Caballero back in the lineup today as well, which is interesting. So definitely interested in some Yankees bats. Rays going back against Gerrit Cole, at least worth considering in a spot where Cole probably gets at least a little bit of consideration on the mound from the field. The Pirates going up against the Blue Jays. Again, the Blue Jays, one of the better totals in the mid-fours. They're going up against Bubba Chandler, who's just been struggling his way through 42 innings. Over 9 starts so far this season. Hasn't been great through most of them. Hasn't been finding the strikeout. He's been walking way too many. He's been given up power. It's been bumpy, and that is a good Blue Jays lineup. So they're looking pretty healthy. Going the other way, it's Kevin Gausman against the Pirates. He looks like one of the top projected options. Strikeouts have been down somewhat this year. Outside of his first 2 outings, he had an 11 strikeout game and a 10 strikeout game, and then hasn't struck out more than 5 in any of his other 8 starts. So a little bit of a dip in quality there. Could get it all back against a high strikeout Pirates lineup, but he is slightly lower projected than the apex of the pitching slate, but definitely worth considering against the Pirates lineup that can feed you fantasy points. And I do think the strikeouts eventually come back. Tobias Myers for what's probably a short start for the Mets. Not too interested there. 4.08 implied total for the Marlins. They could get a little bit interesting. We've seen the power develop in that lineup a little bit. There are some interesting bats there to throw at Myers, and then the Mets bullpen probably for 4 or 5 innings after he goes for a short outing. Yuri Perez is on the mound for the Marlins. Just a 4.0 implied total in basically an even up game in Vegas for the Mets, but they're looking better than that on the board. The home run pick of the day is coming from the New York Mets today. Yuri can be fantastic. He's got great stuff, but he can also be all over the place. Really has issues with walk, really has issues with premium contact. So I'm kind of intrigued by the Mets if that total just keeps them a little bit under the radar today. It's a good enough lineup. Bo Bichette's been surging, so there's a little bit of additional quality there. Worth considering, at least. The Twins going to Boston with Connor Prielipp on the mound. Boston's been pretty interesting with this active roster against left-handed pitching. They're top 6, if memory serves, by WRC Plus against left-handed pitching for the active rosters so far this year. But Prielipp's also been really good. He's been finding the strikeout stuff. Completed 6 innings in his last start. Yet to give up 3 earned runs in any of his starts over five outings in the show this year. High-end prospect who's been good, solid lefty. Red Sox come in at a 4.14 implied total. They look okay, but that is a lackluster lineup if we're just looking at name brands and numbers going down the lineup. So it is one of those situations where I get concerned about the bottom of that lineup really delivering and letting them get out from a 4-run game, a 5-run game out to a 9-10 run game, which you really need. I don't think the total's necessarily wrong. But I think you just get a huge chunk of your outcomes in that 4 to 6 run range and a very thin extended tail. On the Twin side, going up against Peyton Toley, he's been really good. 8 innings in his last start. Just 3 strikeouts in that game, but held the Braves at Atlanta to just 2 runs on 4 hits. Allowed a home run, but who cares at that point? 3 strikeouts and a walk. Has been better than that for strikeout throughout his career. Had an 11 strikeout game against my Yankees back at the end of April. Has plenty of upside against the Twins team that he has checked down to just 3, 4, 5 implied runs. That's another squad they're looking a little bit more interesting than that for DFS purposes. There are a couple of upside home run bats in that lineup. They're at least worth kicking around a little bit, especially if Peyton Toley gets a little bit popular. The Nats and the Braves, the big talking point for offense going up against Dickie Lovelady and Miles Michaelis. Fire away with as many Brave shares as you can carry. They were great yesterday. I had such a lineup yesterday. I forgot to get into it. I had the full Braves, 3 of the Braves, all of whom went off. Michael Harris, I forget who the other two, Yaz down lineup, and then I forget who the other one was. Vladdy at first base, who had a okay enough game. Strider on the mound, which is why it had to be a 4-3 on FanDuel. And it went off. It was top. Me and Cubs actually were trading back and forth first place. And then there were a couple people right around us who were kicking around through the entirety of the first two games. And I was teed up perfectly. I had the key 4 Diamondbacks stacked the rest of the way with that lineup. I was sitting there counting my money. It ended up coming in 14th. It was a top 20 lineup. It was a very good outcome. But that's worth $50 as opposed to a few grand. But it killed me. Diamondbacks just really, really let me down. But I do think we end up going right back there tonight. And the Braves looking pretty good as well. I would play that same stack again and re-roll that. It was positioned so nicely. Again, it was Marte, Perdomo, Carroll, and Nolan Arenado, each of whom got opportunities to really deliver. It was a unique lineup too. It was all on its own. Anyway, Tigers and the O's. Mid-4s implied total for the O's. They're looking pretty good. One of the top teams on the board. They're going up against the scuffling version of Jack Flash, which is definitely a targetable spot. I skipped over Bryce Elder, by the way. He's on the mound for the Braves, looking pretty good going up against those Nats. They're at a sub-4 implied total. 2 big bets in that Nationals lineup. They've scored a decent amount of runs through the season, but they're not a great lineup. So Elder's been pitching really well. I do think we're going to be using him a little bit on this slate. Going back to the next one, the O's definitely looking interesting against the corpse of Jack Flaherty. A lot of short outings, not a ton of strikeouts, too many walks this season, and just a handful of runs in basically every outing for Flaherty. O's have plenty of power upside. They're a very up and down squad, but they're better than they've been as far as just the man-by-man lineup there. So I think we're getting to that. I also feel that way about the Tigers, but they've been struggling even more, especially for wins and losses. There are some very interesting lefty bats to get to for a little bit of power upside against Chris Bassett. Bassett's been okay in spots through the season. He's also been downside Chris Bassett. He's basically a coin flip starter. I think you could take some shares of Tigers at 4.03 on a deep slate where we're going to be wanting to spread out to teams with a little bit of visible upside. I think they're one of them, and that's a gettable enough starter. Logan Gilbert against the Royals. Pitcher I really like, works in deep into ball games, has been a little bit up and down through the season. 7 earned runs, for example, over 6 2/3 against the Padres in a spot we wanted to get to him. Gave up 3 home runs in that game. He also had a 4 home run game allowed against the Braves earlier in the season. That was 3 starts back. Other than that, no multi-home run games, but has given up a homer in several other starts. The strikeouts are down a little bit, but overall a very talented pitcher, limits walks, should be a good target for him against the struggling Royals team, sub 4 implied total for them. Going the other way, Noah Cameron, lefty, I think we can throw some Mariners bats at him. He's been kind of scuffling with the walks, some runs allowed throughout most of his starts. Not looking like a great pitching spot on the Kansas City side. Surprisingly low, 4.13 implied total for the Mariners. I would have guessed if you were just asked me, mid-4s, a little bit, a quarter run higher. But definitely an interesting enough spot given some of the right-handed bats that are in that lineup. The Dodgers against the Brewers, another interesting one. Justin Robleski, low strikeout option. Logan Henderson, high strikeout option. Premium young pitcher, but running headlong into the Dodgers isn't good for anybody. 4.31 implied on the Dodger side, 4.3 implied on the Brewers side. I think we're mostly considering bats in this game. Both those teams look pretty good on the board. If we're taking anybody on the mound, it's probably Logan Henderson over Robleski, just a higher ceiling if he happens to buzz his way through the Dodgers. Last time out, he struck out 7 against Minnesota. He had a 5 strikeout day, give up 2 earned runs to the Yankees, just over 5 innings, an 8 strikeout game against the Nats. So the talent is very much there to have a decent enough day. It's just such a challenging opponent on a very deep pitching slate. Feels like a why do we want to kind of a spot more than anything else. Dodgers are also showing a significant amount of power in both the home run model and in the Fangraphs game sims. So just something to keep in mind there. They're like 4th on the stacks board, but they're showing a lot of power. I think they were the top team in the power index. Rangers and the Angels. This is Jacob deGrom's spot. I think we fire away with deGrom share as much as we can carry. 3.35 implied total. He's been terrific this year. 30+% strikeout rate. There's tons of Ks in that Angels lineup. A little bit of danger, obviously, from power. He can allow some premium contact from time to time. Odds are it's a solo shot. It's a 2-run homer. He finds enough strikeout to make it not be at all damaging. So no concerns there. Grayson Rodriguez making his second start back. Only went 3 2/3, allowed 7 earned runs. It was against the Dodgers the other day, struck out 4 and walked 4, but not the greatest of returns. Getting another crack at it today. I don't love the spot for him, though. Even with the Rangers not being great, 3.81 implied total, I think it's just to stay away from Grayson Rodriguez until he shows us a little something. Colorado in Arizona again tonight, 5.39 implied total that I already referred to for the Diamondbacks going up against Tomo Sugano, who is just not a major league pitcher. He's had a couple of bright spots in surprising fashion. One was at the Reds, went 5 1/3 that day on April 29th. That one sticks out in the memory just because we were on the Reds pretty hard that day in their ballpark for DFS purposes, and he really shocked. But in that game, he struck out 2 and walked 3. He didn't have a great DFS day outside of being just cheap and somewhat surprisingly competent. But odds are you're getting a handful of runs here, and there's significant upside for a big day on the Diamondback side. And it's Michael Soroka on the mound for the D-backs. He's been tremendous this year, finding the strikeout. There's plenty of strikeout for him in that Colorado lineup. So really like Soroka today. Last time out, he faced this same Colorado team at Coors just 5 days ago. Excuse me. 5 2/3. Gave up 2 earned runs on 6 hits, struck out 8, walked 2. Upside for that kind of a day again for Soroka today. The Athletics and the Padres, low totals in this one. Athletics kind of surprisingly low total. They are showing some power. They're going up against Walker Buehler, who has a 5+ ERA, but has an interesting 3.73 xFIP. More competent numbers under the covers. Finding a little bit of strikeout stuff as well. He's just over a 20% strikeout rate, if memory serves from what I was looking at earlier today. So putting it together a little bit from a pitcher who used to be fairly high end, I'm still surprised the A's are at a 3.61 implied total when they've got power showing. It is a pitcher-friendly park. The A's haven't been totally reliable for producing offense, but I tend to lean toward the bats in that matchup. Buehler could surprise, though. I'm at the point where I guess I wouldn't be knocked out of my chair if Walker Buehler had a pretty interesting day. Jeffrey Springs on the mound going the other direction. Pod's bats showing a little bit of upside, but only a 3.96 implied total. Maybe it's a spot where it's better off just considering the arms in small doses and not really rostering too much of the bats on either side of that one. And then we round things off with the White Sox and the Giants, the lowest end game of the day, 3.57 implied on the White Sox side, 3.50 for the Giants. It's Davis Martin, who is interesting and pitching really, really well and pitching with extended upside lately. His last 3 starts, 7 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 2 combined earned runs over the 3 starts. That was against the Angels, the Mariners, and the Cubs. 10 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts. Angels, Mariners, Cubs. So pretty interesting option against a really low-end Giants team. Can find the strikeout upside against them. Can find the depth of start at the end of the night. Pitcher-friendly conditions out there. Don't sleep on Trevor McDonald, though. That White Sox team, outside of the 2 big bats, is really, really gettable. Just a 3.57 implied total on their side. McDonald's been terrific at keeping the ball down. It's just really interesting, like Logan Webb light looking kind of a kid. I don't want to give him any kind of like good version of Logan Webb, not this year's. I don't want to give him any kind of credit for actually being that, but he's been interesting. He's not a big time strikeout kid. He did have 8 Ks over 7 innings against the Pods in his first game, but just 4 against the Dodgers, 5 against the Athletics at Los Angeles and in Sutter. But what's interesting in those starts, he gave up 3 earned to the Dodgers on 9 hits over 5 1/3. Okay, fine. That's the Dodgers. Struck out 4, walked 2, but got out into the 6th inning, was fairly competent. 6 2/3 against the Athletics, 1 earned run, 5 hits, struck out 5, walked 1 the other day. And again, pitched into the 7th inning. Showing us a lot of quality, a lot of ability to pitch deep into games. It's a small sample. It's early on. He has middling minor league numbers. He's not a premium prospect, but he's interesting. And I don't know that people are going to really flock to him. Maybe people do start drawing shares of Murakami, Montgomery on the other side. It is a spot where at least one hedge lineup would be worthwhile. But I think McDonald's going to be interesting on the board. Speaking of, there he is, right there in the middle. Above a more expensive Logan Henderson. Look where Logan Henderson's priced on DraftKings versus where he's priced on FanDuel. With all FanDuel's reactionary pricing, you would think that they would throw a little bit more salary onto the kid, but there he is. That's not a terrible FanDuel play. I intended to start us out talking about McDonald there to wrap it around, but Henderson stands out on that FanDuel slate. There's a little bit of potential there. It's a terrible, terrible matchup, one of the worst on the board. And again, the Dodgers are drawing significant power against. That's just very cheap to find out. Over here, it's nowhere near the same play. At 92, you can throw darts at it. He probably won't be that popular. and he is very, very talented, but that's not a good buy. McDonald, though, 77 on DK, that totally works as a SP2 option. Just get me the depth. Get me through 6 competent innings. Quality start would be great. Even if he doesn't give me the quality start, even on FanDuel at 82, it's not bad. There's strikeout upside in that White Sox lineup for sure. He's demonstrated, maybe not in the results, but at least in the underlying numbers, that there might be some ability to keep the ball in the yard. So color me intrigued right there in the middle of the board. We'll work downward from McDonald to start us out. Robleski, I feel like overpriced on FanDuel, totally in the mix on DraftKings. Again, there's a big pocket of guys between 25 and like 23 right there that are all playable, all kind of same as far as upside, as sharing basically the same median projections at very similar pricing. And then there's kind of the same thing up at the top of the board. But everybody through this end here is at least fairly usable, including Noah Cameron against a Mariners team that's been pretty up and down this season. They've got some quality righties and they're showing upside, and I'm interested in Mariners bats against, and he hasn't been good, but he is good. So there's upside enough there, especially at 68 on DraftKings. If you're dipping into the Jack Flaherty, Chris Bassett pool in their game heads up against each other, you might as well consider some Noah Cameron from the bargain bin as well. I don't trust either one of these guys, but either one of those guys could have a good game against their matchup. Plenty of strikeouts on board in really both of those lineups. The Tigers scuffling their way through this season. A lot of disappointment. If targetable enough. Flaherty's been terrible. Bassett's been a little bit better. Both share similar upside on a good day, but a lot of downside. Springs is interesting on the other side of that Padres game. Very affordable at 78, 72. Not a real go-to, not a monster ceiling, but totally affordable in a pitcher-friendly environment against a Padres team that really hasn't shown us all that much specialness this year. Once we get down past Noah Cameron, outside of that little pocket, I really don't trust Rodriguez to deliver much of a start here. He's very cheap. He is, or was before all the injuries, a talented guy. I just don't know what we're getting. And it's such a deep slate that I don't think you need to go to it. Bubba struggling too much and just not a good target to find your upside against that low strikeout, high quality base hit Blue Jays team. Buehler is probably the most interesting guy buried down here, unless you're a little bit masochistic and you want to take Nick Martinez in Yankee Stadium, especially at 9 on FanDuel. Buehler, if Vegas has it right, kind of lined up for a decent start. If the home run model is more accurate, or if there just happens to be a couple guys on base when one of those home runs is delivered, then that could bend his day if he gets popular as a value play. Probably doesn't end up getting popular. I think people still expect that he's bad given the 5 ERA. I just don't like this. Even at 78 on DraftKings, like, why do you want to take the chance with Martinez against the Yankees there? Just doesn't really feel right. Myers, I don't think you get enough depth even against Miami, even at a cheap price. That's a hard no, and these are hard no's down here. Lovelady just in for an inning and as an opener. Up at the top, plenty of depth, plenty to work with, and some fair pricing. DeGrom, for one, at 97 on FanDuel, kind of inexplicable. On a day where Davis Martin, who has been very good, comes in at 10-4. Explain that to me. I really don't get it. So take as much DeGrom as you can carry. Like I said, there are plenty of strikeouts for him in that Angels lineup. A little bit of threat from the power, but who cares? 95 on DraftKings, it's basically the same story. I mean, he could be more expensive than these other guys. Logan Gilbert against KC. Just got to have a little faith. But basically, he projects the same as this entire handful of pitchers. So if you're a non-believer, if you don't want to buy in at the price at 8,300, 8,700 on the DraftKings slate, try and tackle a Kansas City lineup that's been nothing special this year, then there's plenty of other options. But I really like Logan Gilbert at those prices. Davis Martin, I'm willing to pay for at 10-4 against that Giants team, showing those kind of totals in those conditions. Much more friendly at 84 on DraftKings. I suspect he gets pretty popular over there at that price. Would take shares of Kevin Gausman. FanDuel at 85. He's been pitching really well. He just hasn't, again, the strikeouts have been down over 8 of his 10 starts. But plenty of strikeout for him to go get in that Pirates lineup. 85, 83, the pricing on both sites totally works, and he's been good at limiting runs by and large this season. So I'll take shots with Kevin Gausman all day. Peyton Tolley at 92, 89. A lot of upside. Kid is very, very good. Coming in at those same prices as that other handful of guys probably comes down to what I end up deciding his ownership looks like toward the end of the day. I don't know that he gets as popular as those other guys, given he's more expensive. But people are on that pitcher in general. So it wouldn't shock me if he rivaled. I'm trying to figure out the comps. Like, does totally get more popular than Soroka against the Rockies on FanDuel? On DraftKings, I feel like Soroka is the more popular one because he's 8,000 versus 8,900. I think that draws a pretty firm line. But the 92, 93, I think is interesting. Certainly DeGrom is more popular on both sites at 97. The idea that you can pay only 500 more and get from Peyton Tolley, Michael Soroka to Jacob DeGrom explains a lot about FanDuel's pricing this year. But I'm really interested in that back and forth. Which one of these guys ends up more popular on the FanDuel slate? Because I don't think people fully trust Soroka. And despite the quality of that matchup, I think they have more faith in Tolley's upside. I don't know that they view the Twins as that much of a threat. That's a real interesting back and forth. Again, it's just more stark here based on the pricing. Jody Perez, if you want to take chances on a big-time upside pitcher at a cheap price, that's your guy. It's just not a great matchup against the Mets. They've been significantly better over the last few weeks. They're putting the pieces back together a little bit, but very fairly priced for the strikeout potential. Again, Gerrit Cole just checked down slightly by the circumstances. 8,900, 8,500. The Rays are also just good. So not the best spot in the world, but one of the best pitchers in the world, assuming full health. So fire away. If you feel like getting there and you think there's a couple extra points, it's not like he's far separated from anybody not named Jacob DeGrom. He is a part of this pocket of pitchers. It just happens that he's shaved down a little bit. Not great pitching conditions, Yankee Stadium, warm day, et cetera, et cetera. As mentioned, Prelip, I think is interesting. 81, 7,000, especially on that DK slate. Given the way he's been pitching, what the strikeout upside is, it's just you got to fade the Red Sox who have been good. It's like a 114, I want to say, WRC plus against lefties this year for the active roster. But I think there's plenty of bargain-based upside there. And that DK price really works at 7. I wouldn't call you nuts if you wanted to put Prelip together with Gausman at 83, certainly. 7,000 and 8,300. Work your way through the top of the board. There's an angle through which you could roster, certainly, Jody Perez and Connor Prelip and save a whole bundle of money. It's not a great probability that both those guys have slate bending starts, but those are cheap prices. And at the higher prices, the guys above them will have some work to do to pay those numbers off. So there is a little differential there. It's not a crazy pairing to make. I probably like it better than either of those guys paired with any of the bargain bin guys. Like there's more upside in Perez Prelip than there is in either of those guys and Flaherty, Cameron, Chandler, Buehler, any of those combinations. McDonald also works in that group, 7,700. And honestly, Bryce Elder at 81, the 8,000 on Soroka is a bargain. There's a lot of fair pricing on this DraftKings board. But just given there's a little bit of additional offset to those two, and they both have strikeout upside, that's an interesting little approach on your DK board. And then Elder, just again, differently priced on FanDuel, 96. I still don't fully believe that what we're seeing is overly real / sustainable, but it's an okay enough target. That's a much, much better price. I think he's fine over here. Probably doesn't get crazy popular on FanDuel on such a deep slate, but there's so many options I would rather have, and only so many shares to go around. So maybe he does fall through the cracks, find some upside that way, but just kind of a middling option. All right, I'm going to hit the lineups button here. You guys hit the like and subscribe button down there while I hit this lineups button. We'll just go going back to the comments contest thing. We'll just go with traditional home run pick. Your home run pick, go down after the show, swing back if you got to leave and come back. Swing back after the show, drop a comment in, leave your home run pick. If you nail it, then free week. Just got to have it in before lock. And whoever gets it right, more than one free week available. Not going to let you guys start stacking up 3 weeks, though. You got to cash them in. A couple people won the other day. Haven't heard from them. Yeah, I saw Manaea slated for relief work for the Mets. I just don't know what the depth of the assignment is going to be, because I do think Myers is going to pitch multiple innings. I don't think it's just going to be a pure opening spot for Tobias. So it's probably 3 and 4, 3 and change. I don't love those kind of spots. But yeah, I don't think it's full bulk relief. Like, I'm trying to distinguish a little bit between short start, long relief and opener bulk relief as far as the terminology goes, just for what John Hansa pointed out. But yeah, good note. Manaea is always a guy with a little bit of interesting potential to keep the other opponent off the board for a few innings, find some Ks for the time that he's in. I just don't like the unpredictable situation for DFS purposes. So since it's a deep slate and there's a lot to go through, I am going to try and make okay time. It's 4:30 now. I'm going to try my best to have us out around 6 o'clock. I brought the stacks board over, and I thought this would be a good way. I know we just talked through a lot on the runs board and on the pitching board, but just to take a peek at the stacks board. Some of it's obvious. There was a pretty straight line through Vegas rank today. For those unfamiliar, your DraftKings projection over here, your DraftKings value right there, FanDuel same deal, FanDuel value same deal, your overall home run ranking right there. So a lot of alignment with the Vegas totals as we go through those top end teams. A little bit of reordering on Dodgers, Yankees, Blue Jays, but fairly obvious through those. You're targeting some mixed pitchers like Logan Henderson. Again, could find his upside and work a decent day against those Dodgers. We've seen the Yankees struggle against worse pitchers than Nick Martinez, but I really like their upside. They're showing plenty of power. They're at home. Not a strong value on either the Dodgers or the Yankees today, so it depends on what you're getting along with them, but you do have major value on teams like the Blue Jays, the Tigers, who have that upside. The Tigers are one of the 2 outliers or 3 outliers through the middle of the board. The Royals just find quality based on their ability to get on base. They have Bobby Witt. They have some guys who draw decent projection. So when we're just aggregating projection, they find decent quality against that Vegas total. But as I mentioned, I'm kind of with Logan Gilbert on his side of that one. The Mets, I really do think, are interesting against the downside day of Jody Perez, given how much he walks the world, given the power that they're drawing, the 5th ranked on the home run board. They're 6th by value on DK, 9th and 9th on FanDuel across everything. I think the Mets are at least worth considering some shares. And if they don't get popular in that spot, which they probably don't, I think that makes them one of the more interesting teams from like the middle of the board outside of these more obvious spots that Vegas likes. And it's kind of that way with the Tigers. Bassett is not a difficult opponent. They're only drawing an 18 by home run rating, which is kind of surprising given some of the power upside for some of those hitters, but they haven't really been cashing a lot of it in this year. But they are drawing value numbers on both sides. So I think that makes it the Tigers at least an interesting upside team, and they're better than they've been. They're gonna break the right way at some point. The Blue Jays are just in a good spot. I do think that the Blue Jays get quite obvious. The one thing that stands out there is the lackluster 12 in the home run column, but they haven't really needed the home run to pay off upside games, and Bubba Chandler's really, really been struggling. And then you just get a board that bounces off a lot of the better pitchers on the slate. There's not a ton of downboard quality, even with teams like the Angels. You could take a shot on the power upside if you want. Some of that is showing at the 7. The Twins are showing a little bit of their power upside against Peyton Toley, but again, the 23rd ranked Vegas total for the Twins. Toley's got upside. Prelip gets a little credit from the board. That's another interesting spot. The Red Sox, 2nd ranked by value on DraftKings. They have the 9th highest Vegas total, but they came in a little bit lighter than that by fantasy scoring. I think it's a good day for them, 4 or 5 run type range. They've been quality against lefties. but I lean a little bit toward Prelip, and so does the modeling. Getting a little value on the Marlins in the middle of the board, going up against that combo of Myers, Manaea. Plenty of upside there. They're not really showing the power drawn against Myers anyway at 19, and then you get the lefty into the game, which has an impact on Stowers. I don't love the Marlins spot. They might get a little bit popular around value, particularly on DK, where they come in a little strong. Rangers, Royals, Mariners, all interesting for value on the FanDuel board. Mariners much more interesting for value on DraftKings. That was another spot I called out. Just the right-handed upside bats against the struggling Noah Cameron are kind of interesting there. He ranks 17th on the pitcher board. They're 9th by Vegas total, 2nd by value on DK, 6th by value on FanDuel. Just kind of mid-board as far as projection aggregation goes. As I always want to point out, especially in the projection aggregation columns, we're talking about mere decimal points across the 9-man lineup between, the 6th ranked Blue Jays and the 11th ranked Royals, or the 11th ranked Royals and the 16th ranked Padres. So don't over dramatize how the board looks. I feel like the coloring kind of does tend to lean toward that and make things look a little bit more dramatic than they ought to be, when many of these teams are very, very close if we're actually just being honest about those Vegas totals. All right, we'll hit the gas pedal as we get into the game by game of it, because there are 24 teams to go through. But the return of Gerrit Cole, pretty tremendous news for the Yankees. If we could only get all of our pitchers on the mound healthy at the same time, they'd have the best rotation in baseball. Gerrit Cole, when last we saw him, it's been a minute. 2024, 17 starts, 95 innings, 25.4% Ks, 3.41 ERA, 3.99 xFIP. Little bumpy in those outings. Year before that was pretty spectacular at 2.63 ERA, 3.60 xFIP under the surface, 27% strikeout, a 5.8% walk. As always, Cole can run into it a little bit with power output, but those 2 years, 2.44, 2.82% home run rate. You can see every now and again he'll give up the premium contact, he'll give up the long ball, but it's almost always those limited scoring events, a 1-run solo shot, a 2-run shot. So no real risk of downside there. The only limitation comes from, again, the Rays' decent enough squad. They know how to draw a walk. They're not particularly high strikeout. In fact, they're quite low strikeout overall. And Cole, while I didn't limit the projection, we don't have a fully informed ceiling on Gerrit Cole because of the back-end projections right now, if that makes sense. Because it was done based on speculation of when he'd be back, and I haven't gone in and tweaked anything yet because I want to see what it looks like and how deep we're pitching into games. So there is a little bit of, this is not fully blown Gerrit Cole, but it's very close. He's not, again, far off the top of the board. I think he does share similar ceiling with many of those guys, and he's priced very fairly for the first comeback game on both sides, and was working deep into his minor league rehab starts, of which he made 6. Joker, can we stop making those noises, please? Gnawing on his paw. This is not the way to speed up the show. Speaking of rehab, by the way, Tarek Skubal, 30-plus pitches in his second bullpen outing yesterday. Going to go on a rehab assignment like 2 weeks after his elbow surgery and be back apparently in another week or two. Wild stuff. I thought he was going to be done until the end of August. Knock on wood that all actually comes true. I'm willing to give him time. If I get him back in June, whew, killer. Anyway, Nick Martinez, as I said before, the FanDuel price for one is objectionable. The DraftKings price is fine, but you're just rolling the dice against the Yankees with a 4.35 implied total in Yankee Stadium. I just don't really see the utility there. He's at least on the board as a dart throw for sure from the semi-bargain bin, but he's not even really cheap enough to compete with the $6,000 guys from that tier. He struck out 16.2%. He's not really walking anybody. He's been effective, 1.51 ERA, but an underlying 4.23 xFIP, 4.38 Sierra tells the truth. Hasn't really given up the long ball. Has been really good at inducing weak and medium contact, but doesn't pitch against the New York Yankees every day. So there's some back and forth there. If we're going to the lineups, the Rays are at least interesting. If you want to throw some darts against the Gerrit Cole, that probably at his pricing gets into some people's lineups. Yankee fans like me have been itching to play Gerrit Cole, see him on the mound for our team, certainly. So I'll probably have a couple shares. Other fans will have a couple shares, and other DFS people will too. So I think Cole probably gets more popular than he ought to be. And the Rays are good enough to beat him. They're drawing just a 375 implied total. They don't exactly stand out on the board, but particularly at the top end, Chandler Simpson, super interesting contributor. Just an 87 WRC plus, but the guy puts the ball on the ground in the infield and beats it to first base. And then he steals second. And then he's got a handful of DFS points already. He scores a run, and then he goes out and does it again. On a good day, Chandler Simpson can rack up fantasy points in a hurry. Not all of it shows through the stat line. He's got 14 stolen bases, 288, 321, 342. Extremely lackluster numbers in the WOBA department. Has never barreled the ball that I know of in the majors. Just a 10.1% strikeout, though. 5% walk. A lot of balls in play into Yankees defense. Junior Caminero, massive power, 14.14 against Cole. Certainly somebody that could put one in the seats. Love the upside for a home run for him. 13 on the season, a 357 on base, 141 WRC plus. Kid's a monster. Apparently the Angels could have traded Shohei Ohtani as walk here for Junior Caminero plus at one point, and chose to just hang on to the final couple months of Ohtani and then wave goodbye and see nothing for it. That was a story that was out last night. Jonathan Aranda, pretty terrific option. Premium contact galore, gets on base like crazy. 370 on base right now, 367 xWOB under a very good 358 actual, 128 WRC plus. Solid for power as well. 8 home runs on the board this season, and could start cashing in more frequently on upside contact if he gets back to anything like he was hitting the ball last year. Johnny Diaz, one of the top players just in baseball, period. 316, 394, 506 this season. 8 home runs, a 152 WRC plus. Not many better bats than Johnny, and very low strikeout, medium walk rate. So well-struck balls in play. Another guy who could frustrate Gerrit Cole in his return to the mound. Then we hit the kind of downside with this Rays lineup, and it comes early. That's one of the problems with the Rays. It's also one of the reasons they never really show great on the stacks board, because it's a short lineup. You can get good days where these guys help turn things over. Richie Palacios over 99 plate appearances as a 114 WRC plus. That's very all well and good. We know that he's only a low-end mix and match type talent. Johnny DeLuca, kind of the same thing, just another guy in the outfield. Ced Mullins at 2,500, at 2,800 can maybe be an interesting dart throw if you're going to the Rays. He's probably your best why not option down there. 3 home runs, 10 stolen bases on the season. Otherwise, 181, 242, 271. It's been problematic, but has home run upside, has stolen base upside, multi-category contributor. Once upon a time, 2020 and beyond. It's been a minute since we've seen anything consistent, but you're buying a lefty bat with upside that other people are not going to have in Yankee Stadium, and a lazy fly ball to right off a lefty bat can definitely get in the seats. Nick Fortes, Taylor Walls, more mix and matchy down toward the bottom of the lineup. Fortes been pretty good. Walls been pretty bad. On the Yankee side, Trent Grisham let us down on the home run pick of the day yesterday. The Yankees let us down in general. If you were on them, they got shut down completely by that Blue Jays mix and match staff that they rolled out. But I don't even remember what the hell the kid's name was that pitched so well yesterday against them. But new day, going up against Martinez, gettable pitcher. Anytime the Yanks are facing a low strikeout pitcher who doesn't induce swinging strikes, allows a lot of contact, it's an interesting day to be on the Yankees. So Grisham up at the top, despite all the struggles, he's gotten awfully cheap. 174, 305, 348. I think you go there. As long as the Yankees are putting him ahead of Aaron Judge, Ben Rice, and the rest of these guys, it's still an interesting player. And as I've highlighted a number of times already, he's still making elite contact that is exactly in line with previous seasons, including his breakout last year. So you just keep rolling the dice with that lefty. That's an upside bat, 7.8 in the home run model. All these Yankees, except for Aaron Judge, below the magic number, but a solid handful of them in the upper reaches of that area. Martinez, again, has been good at inducing weak and medium contact, not allowing a lot of home runs this year so far. Last year, he was okay. Not a lot of premium contact at all, but a 3.2% home run rate that was probably mostly happenstance, similar the year before. So he is demonstrably good at keeping the ball in the yard. But the Yanks still showing power upside based on just who's in this lineup. Judge is Judge. You just go there if you're going Yankees, 16 homers. Rice has 16 homers. We're getting close to territory where we can just say Ben Rice is Ben Rice. He's priced like Aaron Judge, though. Cody Bellinger at 5, holding firm at that $5,000 price. DraftKings doing what they can to give you the ability to put multiple upside Yankees bats in a lineup despite 2 $6,000 guys in this lineup. Belly's been good. 6 home runs, 5 stolen bases. Getting on base at a 380 clip is tremendous. 375, 385 weighted on base. And xWOBA fire away with shares of Belly. Paul Goldschmidt carrying a 403 at Wobo with a 417x, 160 WRC plus over 91 plate appearances now. He's been tremendous. 5 home runs on the board, hitting the ball like Paul Goldschmidt of old. 18.6% barrel, 50.8% hard hit in the small sample. It all probably starts to at least erode as time goes on and the sample grows, but he's been downright interesting. You're not really paying much tax on DraftKings at 43 at first base. That's usable, but a blocker to Ben Rice. It's also a reasonably priced alternative to Ben Rice, though. At 33 on FanDuel, same thing. You're not really paying that much tax. I think the true price is probably more in the 29 to 3,000 range, but it's okay. Especially when you get a cheap Jazz Chisholm over there, second and third base eligible at 31. Jazz has been going through it for the most part. He's not making his usual levels of premium contact. It's showing through the slash line, but these things have been going up a little bit. 239, 317, 372. Gradual increases. It's up to a 98 WRC plus, 5 homers, 12 steals. If nothing else, the counting stat ability, the ability to fill multiple categories and have a monster game on any given slate is very much intact for Jazz Chisholm going up against a righty who's going to allow him to make contact all day. Jose Caballero back in the confirmed lineup at 33 at 29. Much better option at shortstop than Anthony Volpe with the way that he steals bases. He's even hit a few home runs. He's got 4 on the board this season. 323 weighted on base, but a 280 xWOB under the surface is a little bit concerning. The overall performance has been a little over expectation, but even in a regular type year, he's stealing bases. He's going to be involved in some run creation, and he's cheap. He is an interesting option, fills multiple positions on FanDuel as well, so even more interesting for utility over there. I've talked a bunch about Ryan McMahon recently. 4 home runs on the board, otherwise kind of scuffling his way through the year, but major upside in that bat. 9.1% barrel, 48.9% hard hit on the season. You're always going to have a ton of strikeout in Ryan McMahon's game, but in years past, he's been better at drawing walks, double-digit walk rates each of the last 3 years. Right now, 8.4%. Part of his problems with that on base and his run creation numbers, but he is a better hitter than this, and he's showing it in the contact. And a lefty bat is always going to be interesting in Yankee Stadium, and people do not use him, and he's really cheap, and he's going up against a nothing righty today, outside of the fact that he is kind of interesting at limiting power, which is the one thing we want from Ryan McMahon. So a little back and forth there, but the price is so cheap that I'm taking shots in stacks of Yankees. Austin Wells, just a cheap dart at a premium contact event against at the catcher position at 2,500, similar to what I said about McMahon. Michael Knack asks, just tuned in, any weather concerns tonight? Yeah, limited. I think we're okay to play, but a couple of the games might get wet. The most concerning spot on Ross' board is the Braves game. He's got that one as orange. 75-degree day, 68% chance of precipitation there. But he actually has an update in now. A slow-moving line of showers and storms likely moves in during the game. I'm not entirely sure what they plan to do about that. Tough to tell at this point if they get lighter rain or a heavy batch, which could be game-ending. So it's a raw fence-sitting situation. He's got it as orange. I would keep an eye on it. The Orioles game is the other one. It's he's got it as yellow. He says it almost definitely rains, but probably not very hard. Most likely outcome is they play without a delay and get a little bit wet. Otherwise, we're fine. What's the note in Kansas City? Why does he have that green? He's got Kansas City in green. 11% chance of precipitation. Apparently, there's a little bit of rain in the area, but he's not at all worried about it, just to throw the other one onto the board. Everything else looks perfectly fine. So, ultimately, with a slight ceiling limitation on Gerrit Cole, I would say Yankees bats. Probably Gerrit Cole. Nick Martinez, DraftKings, Rays bats. Nick Martinez, FanDuel. John Hansa says Goldschmidt WRC plus higher than Judge WRC plus, not on my bingo card. I think we check in toward the end of the year, and that's probably a different situation. Jason Farnes is saying lots of weather implications today. Where are you seeing a lot of weather? Not per Ross board. No real significant wind spots that I'm noticing. I guess that Orioles game has some wind blowing in. Again, that's flagged. with some potential rain and the Braves game. But other than those two, you're seeing something elsewhere, Jason? Yeah, Braves is the one that is called out there. Braves, Nats, Orioles, Tigers, says Meach. Yeah, those are the ones. And you can find all that per Kevin Roth over at Prop Finder. Don't know anything about his new site, but got to plug it at least if I'm going to be using it and calling out his information. Anyway, Pirates, 381 implied total, or excuse me, 361 implied total. Got the contacts in today. It's not the same prescription as the glasses. That's why the world's looked better lately through those glasses that I've been wearing rather than my contact lens prescription. I got to get these updated, get the new one in here. But 361 implied total for the Pirates going up against Kevin Gausman, who again has bbeen good. 3.45 ERA, matching xFIP, 3.49 Sierra. Just a 22.9% strikeout rate, but only walking 3.9%, 19% strikeout minus walk has been pretty spectacular, even with the lack of strikeout. As mentioned a few times, there are Ks in this Pirates lineup for him to go get. I like his upside. I like him to have a good day against a free swinging Pirates team, maybe find a few bonus Ks. Like his upside to keep them off the board. Hasn't been giving up the long ball, just 87.3 miles an hour of exit velo, a 2.60% home run rate. So you can see even O'Neal Cruz, Brandon Lau checked down at 7.94, 7.8 in the home run model, and then nobody else above even 5. And all signs point to a solid day for Kevin Gausman. He's cheap at 83.85. Fire away, one of the top projected pitchers on the board in a good spot. Bubba Chandler, basically the complete opposite. 19% strikeout, 16.4% walk. Ouch. 5.14 ERA with a higher 5.66 xFIP, matching Sierra. 1.52 whip. Way too many guys on base. I will give him credit for at least a 35.5% hard hit rate. Slightly under the emergency threshold of exit velocity at 89.8, but approaching it close enough. 9.1% barrel rate is manageable, but high. 20-degree average launch, so you're putting the ball in the air pretty frequently against him. 3.70% home run rate, probably right around accurate. I would love to be able to give him a little credit for just misfortune there and some happenstance, but it's probably right on the nose. He does grade out well for Stuff Plus. All three of those, technically the location plus right around the average, but pitching plus, Stuff Plus, both over the line. Kid is good. He's just got to put the pieces together. I just don't like this spot for him at all against a low strikeout, 18.6% each of the last 2 years, 18.3 the year before for the guys who were in the league on this Blue Jays team. They're just not a lot of Ks here. There's a lot of frustrating day for guys that can draw the walk, guys who put the ball in play regularly and just can scratch out base hits. Just you can see the downside in this spot for Bubba Chandler as much as you can see the upside for Kevin Gausman. So it being baseball, just flip that on its head, play as much Bubba Chandler as you can, and you'll probably win. But yeah, I really think we can probably draw some Blue Jays bats at the 4-5 implied total going against Chandler here and have a decent day with Gausman and with some Blue Jays bats against. If you're determined to roster Pirates, O'Neal Cruz, Brandon Lau, your absolute priorities there. Nick Gonzalez is having a good season. 319, 379, 363. You can't argue with the surface numbers, but a lot of that success has been fortune-based. It's been on BABIP. He doesn't exactly drive the ball. He puts it in play regularly. He's been dropping it into the right part of the field to get to first base, but that can go away in a hurry, especially against a very good pitcher who limits contact in ways that others don't. So I don't love the Nick Gonzalez spot. If you're going to this team, I greatly prefer Spencer Horwitz. I think he's a much better actual hitter. 277, 384, 431. He's been getting on base like crazy. He drives the ball a little bit more than Nick Gonzalez does. Hit a handful of home runs last year, had a very good partial season last year, and has been at least interesting this season. 131 WRC plus to go with the decent numbers. Connor Griffin would be a priority, but I don't love going to that option at shortstop, a crucial position for our builds on such a deep slate going up against Kevin Gausman. So, if you're going to the Pirates, you do want to get Connor Griffin into your lineup. He's carrying 3 home runs, 11 steals, good counting stats, 278, 331, 407, and a 106 WRC plus over his first 178 plate appearances in the show. He's been good, but there are better shortstops that aren't facing Kevin Gausman in a bad spot today. It's rough to get to Pirates here. 41-31, he's fairly priced. The password, Justin Nixon Garcia, interesting at 22, at 23. A solid mixer if you're going to Pirates already. I would keep the kid in mind, especially on the 5-man site, where I can stick him at 2,300 in the outfield and gain a little bit of salary-based potential. If I'm getting both of those guys, now I'm cheap at shortstop. I'm very cheap at one of my outfield spots, offsetting those two high prices. That puts me at 44 apiece. And then if I'm taking Spencer Horwitz, again, at first base, not the ideal way to fill first base, probably. You could drop down and take Indy at catcher if you wanted to. That's reasonable. That brings us to 4180. Still feels kind of high for a 5-man with those players to face Kevin Gausman, honestly. So maybe if we took Indy, it would bring us to, what do we get? 4020, 4100. That's an approach to bringing it down, but it's probably just not a great spot, even though some of those hitters are cheap. Indy is interesting. A little bit of ability to drive the ball. Decent numbers on the way up. 16 pretty okay plate appearances in a tiny sample so far this year. Esmerin Valdez, dead min price on both sides. Let's just see. 10 homers on the board already in the minors this year, 253, 381, 506. That's as a 22-year-old in AAA, too. Had not played at AAA prior to this year, so succeeding immediately on a pretty big step up in class. Last year in 215 AA plate appearances, had 6 homers, a stolen base, okay slash line with a great on base percentage. In the 314 high A plate appearances that he made the same season, he had 20 home runs, 2 stolen bases, an excellent slash line, a 176 WRC plus. Kid looks like a player. Probably here a little bit early, but it's the Pirates. Deadman price, if you're going to Pirates already, that's another name to keep in mind. You could certainly work your way around Garcia and take him off the bottom. Given the numbers that he has for on-base percentage through the minors, maybe it's a shot as a wraparound play as well back to the top. So maybe gives you more value than Garcia than Andy Rodriguez from that spot. And then Jake Mangum, just a quad A type mix and match player. On the Blue Jays side, George Springer, hopefully starting to turn things around at the Mendoza line, 278, 342. It's been ugly over 134. He's got 4 home runs on the board. Hit one, was that yesterday? Day before, can't remember. But maybe putting the pieces together after a disappointing start to his season after his monster comeback year last year. Vladdy Guerrero still cheap at 48, 3,000, getting cheaper on FanDuel, 283, 374, 372. He's still spectacular. You just go to Vladdy Guerrero, especially against a struggling Bubba Chandler. He might walk 3-4 times. He might scratch out a couple base hits. The power's still in there somewhere. It'll emerge at some point. Right now, we're really going through it as far as the power numbers, but he's still been very good. He's got a 360 xWOB under the 335 actual. Dalton Varsho, cheap for the power upside. Lefty bat to throw at the struggling Bubba. Bubba's given up some premium contact as we highlighted, a 3.70% home run. So there's quality through those top-end players. Nobody above 10, but a few guys approaching it in the obvious group. Kaz Arkamoto's been good for power. Premium contact like crazy. He's still only 35 on DraftKings. That's nice and cheap. Honestly, 31, not too bad at a empty third base position on FanDuel. 10 home runs on the board already this year, carrying a 338 xWOBA under the 319 actual. So a little bit of disappointment so far and underperformance through the slash line, but more quality to come too. Pinango, cheap lefty bat that you can throw into the mix. Hasn't really been striking out. Hasn't been drawing the walk, so putting some interesting contact in play. 298, 344, 386 over 61 plate appearances and counting. Not a bad option, as cheap as he is, if you're just going to Blue Jays to fill out a lineup to cheapen things up on the average. Ernie Clement, just a mix and match, put the ball in play type of hitter. Brendan Valenzuela, just a cheap catcher share. Andres Jimenez, mix and match quality in the middle infield. Not a great way to fill shortstop on DraftKings. Maybe at second base on FanDuel. The interesting hitter remains Jesus Sanchez if you're going down to the bottom of the Blue Jays lineup. 5 home runs, not a bad slash line, but not a good one. 323 weighted on base with a 328 xWOB underneath it, but is creating runs in a positive sense. 105 WRC plus, doesn't strike out. Puts a lot of interesting contact into play and has been underperforming his career numbers in terms of barrel rate. So eventually we're probably going back up and finding his better contact. Solid lefty that people aren't going to have all that much against a struggling pitcher. Definitely interesting. Gausman, because he's too cheap and projects near the top of the board. Blue Jays bats right there behind him. Pirates bats before Bubba, but really neither of those things look very good. As mentioned, these Mets may be kind of interesting going up against Yuri Perez. You're going to get Nick Morabito on the board. Nick Morabito is right-handed. 5'10", 185. He had 4 home runs, 14 steals down in AAA, over 175 this year. Adequate, not great slash line, just a 99 WRC plus. 6 homers, 49 stolen bases over 492 AA plate appearances last year. Solid slash line, 120 WRC plus. Not a lot of power in that bat, but maybe a guy you could look to for a little bit of on base, a little bit of stolen base bonus. This is Morabito that we're talking about down here. Let me get him into the mix. Is that close enough to all the way May Motivito from A League of Their Own? Can we call him all the way Nick? Carson Benj at the top of the Mets lineup, 3,500, 3,100, 3 home runs, 8 stolen bases. Pulling his season together a little bit after it was really disappointing. He broke camp on fire and then went into a total hole once he started facing actual MLB pitching. But he's kind of come around in recent weeks, and he's interesting at the top of this lineup that we want to get to, that I hope other people don't really go to. They're showing a little bit of value, a little bit of potential. And again, the home run pick of the day comes out of this Mets lineup against Yuri Perez, who, good as he can be, and you can see how good he can be in that stuff plus number, 116 is outrageous. Can't locate, save his life. 10 points below average locating. That explains the 12% walk rate. He induces a lot of swinging strike because who the hell knows where the ball's going half the time. 25.2% strikeout rate. He's got a 5.33 ERA, a 4.50 xFIP, 4.23 Sierra. Really clunky start to his year. He's also given up a ton of premium contact this year, a 4.35% home run rate, 14% barrels, one of the more egregious numbers on the entire slate. That's what got me interested in the Mets. But if you roster Mets, don't come crying if they get shut out over 7 innings by Yuri with 8 strikeouts, 10 strikeouts, something like that. On his best days, he rivals the best in the league. His stuff is that good. So just be aware. But I think we land Mets here. Bo Bichette up to 225, 276, 328 has been interesting over the last handful of games. 331 xWOBA under the covers. Perfectly reasonable option, who is cheap at shortstop, 4,000. He has third base eligibility, which is even better on FanDuel for 3,000 because then you can still get another high-end shortstop alongside him. Absolutely crucial part of going to the Mets that I really like the upside for Bo Bichette at those prices. Mark Vientos, one of our guys around here, 9.25 in the home run model. He's got 6 on the season in a bumpy season so far, just a 173 ISO, just a 298 weighted on base, but a very interesting 343 mark underneath that. 11% barrels, 47.5% hard hit, just only Juan Soto doing better than that for contact. That makes Mark Vientos a really interesting option, but it makes Juan Soto the home run pick of the day at 14.46. We need one, so I took the superstar today, 6,200, 3,900. Feel like he's a couple $100 cheap on both sites for being Soto. 292, 388, 546 on the season, over 152. Missed a little bit of time. 9 home runs, 5 steals, a 409 xWOBA, 158 WRC plus. Not many do it better than Soto. Brett Baty, interesting enough lefty, 9.3% barrel, but lacking in the hard hit rate department. Down hard from where he was last year, 12.8 and 46.7. He's at 9.3, which is an okay enough barrel rate, but we need more consistency out of Brett Baty. 3 home runs, a 243, 10, 360 slash line, and a 93 WRC plus. Any given slate upside for sure. Going up against the bad version of Perez, there's upside for him to draw a walk, 8.9% this year. He does strike out a lot, so maybe we're up there swinging and missing, but a 7.81 in the home run model. More interesting on FanDuel, where he fits 4 positions for 2,800. You can just flex him to put the Mets together with basically anybody that you want. Marcus Semien, really not that interesting. Hasn't found very much. 225, 276, 313. Playing every day, but not really playing well and not really giving you much in the DFS department. At least he puts the ball in play. He doesn't strike out all that much. Doesn't really walk all that much. It's the one nice thing I can say about Semien right now. AJ Ewing's been interesting. Home run, 2 stolen bases that came early, but 276, 432 most importantly, and 448. Good numbers through the minors for power and speed. Still cheap at 33 on DraftKings. Same price on FanDuel, works differently against the FanDuel cap, but probably more interesting than Motorbito, probably more interesting than Luis Torrens, although if you need a cheap catcher on DK, you can throw that dart a time or two. He makes interesting contact. You can say that over the last couple of seasons. In and out of the lineup, but low strikeout, frequent contact, not bad for 2,300. On the Marlins side, tackling Tobias Myers, who has been pitching fairly well. 3.41 ERA, 3.99 xFIP out of the bullpen. This team lost Clay Holmes, so right now they're turning to Myers for what will be probably a short start. I've got him under 5 innings here, and he doesn't project out as playable. And then probably followed by Sean Manaea, who comes in for probably 3-4 innings. I don't think either of those guys is really on the board, given what we're seeing here price-wise, numbers-wise. Going up against a Marlins team that's also just interesting enough at a 4.08 implied total. They've got quality through this lineup. Xavier Edwards is good at 47-34, 316, 395, 484, carrying a 149 WRC plus and hitting the ball for a little bit more power this year, as we've talked about. Liam Hicks, probably still overperforming his talent, but a 338 xWOBA says there's only so far to fall from the 357 actual, 126 WRC plus, 9 home runs on the board is interesting, super low strikeout, so a lot of balls in play. They're just, the numbers, the reason I say I think he's overperforming, most of the numbers, particularly the 9 home runs, the surface numbers, kind of defy the contact that he's actually making. We've seen guys make this kind of contact and just deliver their home runs anyway. He could fall into that bucket, but 5,000 feels expensive, feels like a tax for what he's already done. Same with 34. Still a crucial bat if you're going to the Marlins, but priced out of the range of desirability, unless we're factoring in, that you can average it right back down with Connor Norby, Kyle Stowers all being cheap. Norby making okay contact with an 8% barrel rate, down from 9.4 last year, but he's another guy, lackluster hard hit rate, 35%, just not finding consistency for driving the ball effectively. 4 home runs and 171 plate appearances, mostly a mix and match quality guy. Stowers has 3 in 116 chances. He'll find additional premium contact. He'll drive that ISO up. He'll drive the extra base hits, find his home run power. Right now, 52.1% hard hits in the small sample is still interesting. That's probably ultimately their best player, their most desirable DFS option, and the guy who creates the big fantasy events, coming off of 2 home run day yesterday. Do I have that right? We talked about him yesterday. Jacob Marcy, stolen base upside, 332 on base, 13 steals, just a little bonus scoring. Estuary Ruiz gives you kind of the same thing. Lighter bat, 176, 194, 412 over just 36 plate appearances. Little upside for speed. Every now and then he could get into one, but not overly interesting. Owen Casey's probably more interesting. Joe Mack is probably more interesting from down lineup. A little bit of power upside from those 2 players. Good pedigree through the minors for Joe Mack. Remains very cheap where you need catchers at 25. Less interesting on FanDuel. And then Casey. Premium contact for sure. 13.2% barrels, 45% hard hits over 134 plate appearances. Just not much to show for it outside of those 4 home runs. But there's an upside bat in there. If you're taking just some of the lefties, I think that's an interesting way to approach the Marlins through some of those players. And then you take Hicks, and then you obviously want Xavier Edwards off the top. Kind of straightforward way to roster them. But given the value mark, given the pitching matchup, I do feel like they get a little bit over their skis as far as ownership goes. This is Mets bats, Jeury Perez, Marlins bats. Probably not taking Mets pitchers. Oops. Why can I not? Oh my God. Was that a triple screw up? There he is. Yeah, 6,800. That was all that effort was just to grab Sean Manaea's price on DK. 68. I don't feel like there's going to be enough there. Moving on. 5-10. Taking our time. 3-4-5 implied on the Twins side of this one. 4-1-4 on the Red Sox side. But again, Connor Prelip kind of interesting for this slate. 2.88 ERA, 3.85 xFIP, 3.44 Sierra, 28.4% strikeout over his 5 starts, his 25 innings. Yet to give up 3 earned runs in a game. Downright interesting at 7,000, 8,100. But as mentioned, the Red Sox, the active roster, 340 plate appearances this year against left-handed pitching, carrying a 117 WRC plus, a 347 weighted on base. So you got to take that into consideration. They've been pretty good against lefties. So I believe that total. I would take some Red Sox shares if they pop up. They've got really interesting positional flexibility on FanDuel, and they're downright affordable. A lot less so on DraftKings, but they are affordable over there. Eventually, Prelip probably cracks. I don't think he carries a sub-3 ERA through the whole season, given the higher xFIP and Sierra, but those are still good marks for a kid making his first handful of starts in the show. He's got effective stuff, above average major league stuff. He has given up some barrels, some exit velocity, and some home runs in those starts. 17.3 degree average launch. So there are going to be fly balls in a hitter-friendly environment. But given the cheap pricing and the fact that people probably not going to be overly on him, I kind of like that upside. He projects right in that pocket of very, very usable, fairly priced starters. Peyton Tolley on the other side, a little bit more expensive, but plenty of upside for him as well. Rates out a little bit better by Stuff Plus, carrying a 26.1% strikeout rate against a 6.1% walk, 2.05 ERA, 3.81 xFIP, pretty similar to his opponent in that regard. Over his 5 starts, his 30 and 2/3. He's worked a little bit deeper in Prelip had a short couple first few outings and then went 6 in his most recent game. So we're probably fully stretched out for major league action now. Totally just kind of hit the ground running. 6 innings in the first one, then a 4 2/3, 7 innings, 5 innings, and then the 8-inning start against Atlanta the last time out. Was very strong in that one, despite only striking out 3. He gave up 2 earned runs over 8 innings, 4 hits allowed, 2 earned runs. One was, at least one anyway, came on a home run. Home run allowed the game before that, 4 strikeout day. 1 earned run, 3 runs total on 6 hits over 5 against the Rays. Kid's very capable. The price is fine and not incorrect, but it also does put him slightly in between, like that pocket of usability and that better upper echelon group of starters. So maybe gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. It's interesting that the Twins come in at a 3.45 implied total. They are showing a little bit of power potential. Byron Buxton is difficult to suppress for anybody. A little bit around Josh Bell. Maybe some of these other guys, the 8.5 on Cody Clemens, despite the lefty of it, especially once we get later into the game and they get into the bullpen, there's upside. Plenty of positional flex on the Twins side. I do think they're at least on the board for some light shares to take against a young starter in a hitter-friendly environment. That Vegas total is daunting, though. It's just at under 3.5 runs. If you're going that direction, Buxton's an utter priority despite the price. Plenty of upside in that big righty bat. 15 home runs on the year already, 145 WRC plus, 194 plate appearances and counting. That's what we need, is just knock on wood, stays on the field. Brooks Lee started out great, down to 248, 299, 388. Little concerning there. Just a 264 ex-WOBA, so a lot of room to continue falling too. Probably concerning there for the Twins. Not the greatest way to fill shortstop on this slate, but given how cheap he is, where he's hitting in this lineup, kind of a priority if you are going to Twins. And he's better than the numbers over this slide have been, but probably not as good as he was at the beginning of the year. Austin Martin, solid mixer, 293, 413, 374. Not a ton of power upside, but a guy who definitely, fills the 3-hole in the correct way. Josh Bell at 33, 28, a little bit of power upside. He's hit 5 home runs on the season. Otherwise, pretty poor slash line, just an 86 WRC plus. Needs to pull it together, but he's made interesting contact. 10.8% barrel, 44.6% hard hit for the switch hitter. Gabriel Gonzalez, dead min price on both sites. Another guy we got to look up. A lot of new names today. Returning players today. Gotta love it. Gabriel Gonzalez is 22 as well. 197 plate appearances in AAA this year. 8 home runs on the board. Just a 216, 294, 392 slash line, though. That's a red flaring alarm bell. What do they call that? Certainly not a red flaring alarm bell. Claxton? Anyway. There's an alarm going off in my head about those numbers. That's not great. Was significantly better than that, over 550 plate appearances last year in the minors as a 21-year-old, going from high A all the way to AAA. Fair distribution of plate appearances with similar numbers even after the promotions. So based on that, I think we can alleviate some of the concerns about this year's struggles. Coming into the season as a 22-year-old at the highest level, it's not totally surprising that there would have been a little bit of a dip there. But given the promotion to the actual highest level, nothing we can count on in the 5 spot in this lineup. Creedler at 29, 28, mix and match quality talent. I do like the power upside for Cody Clemens. He makes great contact. Creedler's hit 3 home runs in just 32 plate appearances, by the way. He's dirt cheap, fits into the outfield, second base eligible on FanDuel. So he works. But Cody Clemens, I think, is a more realistic power bat from down there. He's hit 4 home runs, stolen 5 bases, getting on in an interesting 333 clip to support some upside for ongoing run creation, 115 WRC plus. But really, we're interested in those big batted ball events. Luke Keeschel, solid mixer, underperforming his talent over 196 this year. He's better than that. And then Alex Jackson sneaking back into our lives in the cheap spot, catcher spot in the 9 hole. 3,000 on DraftKings, 21 where you don't really need him on FanDuel. There is a little bit of premium contact and power upside there. 6.5 in the home run model from the 9 spot, not nothing. Last season, 14.8% barrel, 40.7% hard hit over exactly 100 plate appearances. 5 home runs on the board in those 100 plate appearances. He's usable. On the Red Sox side, if you're choosing to attack the lefty, a struggling Jarren Duran might not be your best bet to do that with from the leadoff spot. He remains an interesting name if you're going to this team, but he's really going through it at 195, 266, 362, a 72 WRC plus. Not a great matchup, striking out more than he used to, walking a little bit less. The contact has been there, though. The hard hit rate is down, so it's not as frequent, but the upside contact is actually extended, 11.3% barrel, up from 9.5 last year, 9.1 the year before. Sedan Rafaela, you're just dealing with a guy that, as I've talked about, it's going to be counting stats and bad ratio stats, bad slash line by the end of the year, probably a sub-average WRC plus by the end of the year. Right now at 121 WRC plus, he's got a 354 weighted on base with a 302 xWOB underneath it. Pretty problematic numbers, but he's very cheap up at the top of the lineup, multi-position on FanDuel, so you can easily go there if you're going to the Red Sox. Willie Abreu gets shots regularly against left-handed pitching this year. 6 home runs on the board. How's he actually holding up against lefties? It was a good decision to let him have these plate appearances. Let's see how good. Actually, it was a damn fine decision. Turns out. 396, 431, 491 so far against left-handed pitching with a 158 WRC plus. Just a .094 ISO. Typically, we're looking for Willier for power upside. But over those 58 plate appearances this year against same-handed, he has definitely held his own, just been a different type of hitter, but not uninteresting and productive. So keep Willier on your board at 41, 3,000. Again, Connor Prelip is pretty talented, but Willier's been exceptionally good this year. And if you get the power upside, you get him against a righty out of the bullpen later in the game, major power upside. Wilson Contreras, 9.11 in the home run model. He's got 10 on the board to lead the team this season. 15.3% barrel. Interesting enough, fairly priced on both sides. Wish he still had that catcher eligibility on DK, but obviously doesn't deserve it. But, it'd be more interesting if he had it. Monasterio, Sogard, Mayer, Narvaez, and Durbin. Middling to bad. Bottom end of this Red Sox lineup, bottom half of this Red Sox lineup. Everybody's cheap. That's part of why they measure out for value. Basically, everybody's multi-position, so they help with flexibility. But ultimately, you probably want one of those guys in your lineup. You do have a few guys who, 7.6% barrel rates are okay. They're not exactly interesting, but each of those guys was a little bit higher last year in Marcelo Mayer and Carlos Narvaez. Those are probably your 2 interesting down lineup guys. Durbin's just bad. Nick Sogard, just a mix and match guy. Monasterio, kind of the same thing. These guys are both playable just because where they are in the lineup, but these are probably the 2 actually slightly more talented guys. Peyton Tolley, Connor Prelip, Red Sox bats, Twins bats. Boy, do we have a long way to go. All right, so as we talked about, rain considerations in this game. Just keep an eye on that. Roth has it orange, so a lot of concern, a lot of weather in the area. If we get this game, the Braves are one of the top teams on the board. That's the highest run total available at 5.4. They're going up against Dicky Lovelady for an inning as a pure opener, and then Miles Michaelis. Michaelis this season giving up nearly a 6% home run rate to a Braves team that's been finding home run power regularly. Strikes out just 15.1%, allows a ludicrous amount of premium contact while allowing a frequent amount of contact. Dead man walking on the mound for the Nationals. On the Braves side, Bryce Elder's been pretty tremendous this year. 2.01 ERA with a 3.74, 3.89 xFIP. 3.74 xFIP, 3.89 Sierra that are pretty revealing about what the actual underlying quality of his pitching has been. But he's been getting away with it. Word is that he was working with Greg Maddux, and Maddux taught him the secrets. So for whatever that's worth, he's been making it work. But the underlying numbers say that it's not entirely real right now. This Nationals team, not exactly the squad to go out there and prove it all to be an illusion, though. Outside of 2 bats, James Wood and CJ Abrams, there's not a ton of quality here. There's at least some interesting upside, young players like Curtis Mead is definitely still young enough to qualify for that and interesting enough given his prospect pedigree coming up. Dylan Cruz, number 2 pick in the draft a couple years ago, still has plenty of time to prove himself. Has been bad in the show so far, but at least worthy of mixer shares if you're going to that team. But there's not a tremendous amount of upside in the Nationals outside of James Wood and C.J. Abrams, despite the run scoring they've done this year. Dalen Lyle, just a mix and match talent who at 4,700 probably overpriced. At 33, probably overpriced. 336 weighted on base with a 335 xWOB underneath, a 113 WRC plus. It's been perfectly fine. I just don't want to pay that much for Dalen Lyle's talent. Jacob Young, Drew Millis, Nasim Nunez. Nunez only good for stolen bases, doesn't get on enough to support any kind of quality. 55 WRC plus, but has stolen 21 bases, despite getting on at sub 300 level. Luis Garcia in the 2 spot would be an interesting option if you're going to this Nationals team, looking to target Bryce Elder, who eventually, again, will have a downside day, but this is not one of the more likely teams to expose it. What's the recent form on Elder? 3 earned runs last time out over 8 innings against Boston. Just struck out 3, walked 0. Solid day outside of a home run and a couple few runs, but not bad. 5 2/3 against the Dodgers at LA, just 1 hit, 8 strikeout day. Had a 9 strikeout game the game before that over just 6 innings against Seattle, 2 earned runs allowed. There have been a few walks along the way, but he's been putting together good start after good start, working deep into games or deep enough into games to typically hit the quality start threshold. At worst, he's very playable at 81 on DK, at 96 on FanDuel. I don't love it, but I think he's on the board. He's in that group. Braves bats, way more in play going up against this collection of pitchers than the guys I just went through. Ronnie Acuna, superstar, up at the top of the lineup, 3,500, 5,700. Those are very fair prices to find that talent. Exited the game with, I believe, a sore thumb issue yesterday, but back in the lineup today. Got to go to him if you're going Braves. Will be heavily owned among people who take this team. Will be a popular one-off, but well worth it. Mauricio Dubon, not the talent that he looked like through the beginning part of the season, already at 260, 314, 395, and probably cratering even further. 100 league average WRC plus, 317 weighted on bases below average, 302 xWOBA is worse than below average. Matty Olson's tremendous in the 3 spot, though. He should probably be hitting second behind Ronald Acuna. I don't really understand why Mauricio Dubon's in that spot, but is what it is. Olson at 54, at 41, that DraftKings price remains a little bit cheap. 14 home runs on the board, mashing baseballs fire away. Ozzie Albies reclaiming his quality, 4,500, 3,100, 8 home runs this season, getting on base regularly, 116 WRC plus. The xWOB is concerning, as we've talked about, but we're going to choose to ignore it. We're going to take the talent at second base and ride with it. Still fairly priced for a former All-Star who has gotten a lot of quality back this year. Michael Harris, monster day yesterday, 11 home runs now on the season. We've talked all season long about the outrageously good contact that he's made and the massive uptick that we've seen in his premium contact. He's gone from very good numbers to outrageous numbers, great numbers so far in 176 plate appearances. Capable of stealing a base, but as long as he's driving the ball like this, I will take the power upside at 3,800, 2,900 against one of the most targetable righties in baseball. Austin Riley's got immense power. He's up to 8 home runs, 208, 278, 375, and slowly but surely climbing a 308 xWOB at a target from this 293 actual. That's still below average, but we'll work on that once we get there. The premium contact is down, but still intact at good numbers. So fire away with Austin Riley. Dom Smith's having a great year. Ha-Sung Kim is a player who will be entirely overlooked at the bottom of this lineup at 2,800, 2,400. That's a guy with mid-teens home run talent, 20-plus stolen base talent when things are going right. Decent enough average. That's a good player hiding down lineup, just putting the pieces back together over 30 plate appearances after missing significant time with injuries. And then Sandy Leon, just a mix and match dead mid price catcher, but that has value in the price alone from the bottom of a lineup and a team that you're going to want to get to aggressively on DraftKings. And he will not be as popular as that 2,000 price ought to dictate. It's just a building block. You don't really, you need him to, if he's on base once, he's probably paid you. In a big way, Braves bats. Bryce Elder a little bit further down the board, but certainly next. Nationals bats. I would not take Nationals pitching in this spot. Keep an eye on the weather. Another game we're keeping an eye on the weather. Hey, Lee, I don't know where this added space comes from. It's on MLB's board. I'm going to send their people an email. Let them know that they're bored. I just changed it, and now it's going to fix it for me because I clicked the update button. Fix it in air quotes. It'll detect the change and change it back to the version with the space. But yeah, I don't know where this extra space comes from. There must be some kind of accent mark in that name, or it was just input wrong. I'm not totally sure. But there he is. Dirt cheap at the bottom of the Tigers lineup at 2,200. Second base on FanDuel. His stats aren't coming up because he's probably also got that issue on the board now that I'm... Yeah, it's on everybody's. It's on the Fangraphs board too. That's annoying for a guy who's at 200, 250, 317 and not really worth talking about. Had to get him in there, though. Fills out mid infield positions for a very cheap price on both sides. Basically, all the Tigers are cheap on DraftKings. A lot of affordable Tigers on FanDuel as well, but standout cheap on DK. 4+ implied total going up against Chris Bassett, who's pitching to a 14.9% strikeout rate, a 9.4% walk, 5.44 ERA with a 5+ xFIP, similar to Sierra. Not really giving up a ton of premium contact or power. That's the one thing that's kind of on his side. 3.4% barrel is pretty spectacular. 37% hard hit, 88.1 miles an hour of exit velo, sub 2% home run rate allowed so far. So from that perspective, that's the one thing that maybe he shuts down some of their power, and he's having an impact in there. But it's not like he's pitching overly well outside of that. Has had a couple decent days in frustrating spots. Against the A's, a couple starts back when we were most certainly talking about targeting him. He had a 1-run day. 1 run on 4 hits over 6 innings, struck out 6, walked 1. That was his second best start of the season. He had a start 2 prior to that. 6 2/3 of 1-run ball, 7 hits allowed, 7 strikeouts and a walk. That was against the Astros, who, guess what? We were going after that day. I do think that keeps the Tigers in our minds here, though. There's enough quality in this lineup. Mediocre as they've been, or bad as they've been, and demonstrably one of the worst teams in baseball over the last calendar year, which is odd because of the talent, the expectations that this team carries. But here they are, 3 guys in the lineup above average WRC plus numbers, significantly above for all 3 guys. Everybody else kind of well below. Spencer Torkelson underperforming. Kerry Carpenter's absent right now. Riley Green's a monster, and he's very affordable in the heart of the lineup. Top 2 hitters, and then you're just throwing darts. But I think the quality's there, and the value play is certainly there on both sides. McGonigal's an absolute priority from the top spot. Third base shortstop on both sides. Fair price on both sides for a kid who's at 286, 395, 407. Imagine a 395 on base over your first 215 opportunities in the show. That's outrageous. I'm sure it's been done before, but I mean, that is significant talent indicator. This kid is just good. 13% strikeout, 14.4% walk, pair of home runs, 7 stolen bases, a 133 WRC plus, a 375 xWOBA. Outrageously good. Dylan Dingler's been crushing the ball. 9 home runs on the board. The production isn't, reliable. He's got a 13.4% barrel and a 48.8% hard hit. So the premium contact upside, the quality batted ball events are high end. But 241, 317, 469, when he's not driving the ball for the extra base hits, there aren't a lot of days where you're getting away with singles. He doesn't draw a lot of walks. So it's a big scorer bust kind of a play. But at 3,800 at catcher hitting second, there's upside there for sure going up against Chris Bassett. 3,000 on FanDuel. You play him like he's their first baseman. Or you play him alongside Torkelson if you want to. Jahmai Jones at 24, at 23 has at least made interesting contact so far in his major league career. Last 2 years in moderate plate appearance samples, 13-4 or 53.6% barrel and hard hit last year. This year so far, 13-9, 50% over 63 chances. It's amounted to a nothing slash line, 2 home runs and a 61 WRC plus, but a downright interesting 349 xWOB under that 260 actual keeps him on the board, and he is very affordable. As mentioned, Riley Green's just terrific. 326, 422, 475. The one thing he's not really doing well this year is hitting for power, but it's not for lack of contact. The barrels are down, but they're still great at 13%. Hard hits are actually up from 45.5 to 48.8. So plenty of quality there. The slash line's tremendous. He's carrying a 158 WRC plus. If nothing else, Riley Green's a really interesting one-off at a very fair price on either site from this lineup. Torque is only 29-27. He's got 7 home runs. Sub Mendoza, 306, 376 isn't going to get it done. We've seen him struggle with consistency before, but the barrels are very real at 13.6%. We're just going to hunt some contact here against Chris Bassitt if we're going to this team, and Torkelson's a big part of that conversation. Strikes out too much, but Bassitt doesn't really find the strikeout. Draws plenty of walk. Bassitt's more than capable of walking guys, so Torque could give you a little upside for additional scoring even if he doesn't hit the long ball. Just got to avoid the K. Winfield Perez, always interesting as a mixer, very, very affordable in the outfield. Hasn't done much of interest so far this season in 113, but if memory serves, he had 1 big game, 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases on the board, at worst a mixer. Zach McKinstry, mixer. Gage Workman, the ability to drive the ball. So far this season, 2 home runs in 28 plate appearances in the show, 46% strikeout rate. Maybe that gets problematic even against Chris Bassitt. And then Hey-Uli at the bottom of the lineup. On the Orioles side, they're showing visible quality as well with that mid-4s implied total on a light day for Vegas totals. A lot of power showing as well. 11.93 leading the team. Pete Alonso against Jack Flaherty. Jack Flash has allowed an 8.9% barrel, 45.2% hard hits, way over the line there. 90.7 miles an hour of exit velo on a 21.6 degree average launch. That should, in the long term, equal way higher than just a 2.91% home run rate. So he's been a little lucky to keep the ball in the yard the way that he has. Everything else has already fallen apart around the edges. He's walking 14.1% over 10 starts, only 43 2/3 because he's been out of games early. 5.77 ERA with a pretty similar 5.24 xFIP, 4.77 Sierra. At least the Sierra is a full run lower, but it's not like we'd be talking about him being good if he was pitching into a 4.77 ERA. 63, at least the struggles are priced in. 68, they're priced in. I do think that if all goes to plan, he's still got that 6 and change into the 7th inning upside, but things have not really gone to plan at all this season for Jack Flash. I think he had 1 good one. 5 innings, 10 strikeout day, 2 runs, 2 earned runs, but 4 total runs on 3 hits. Against the Red Sox, 3 starts back. Last time out, 4 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, no walks. I'm dipping below the desk because I got to plug my mouse back in. Yeah, quality outings have been few and far between. Back on April 15th on tax day, 6 innings, 7 strikeout, 3 walk, 1 run allowed. But very targetable. Taylor Ward would be a part of that. 9.91 in the home run model. He has lost his premium contact upside so far this season. He's still getting on base at a 415 clip, though, drawing a 21% walk rate. Outrageous. It's him and Kurtz in that territory right now. Kurtz, by the way, 44-game on base streak. Whew. I saw that pop up yesterday, and I'm like, man, we should be talking about that more. But then you realize that's not even top 3 in athletics history. I think he's got 2 games to go to tie Jimmy Fox for 3rd. And then over Major League Baseball, what it really tells you when you look at the record, he's got another 40 games to go before he gets to the guy that we should just always talk about, Ted Williams. 84-game on base streak. It's insane. It's half a season in a row on base. Wild. Anyway, Taylor Ward's been getting on base quite a bit this year. Not hitting for power, but still really interesting atop the Orioles lineup. And I think there's a chance for the power to come back on any given slate against anybody, and especially against a pitcher like what this version of Jack Flash has been. Gunnar, definitely interesting from the left side. 10 home runs on the board, basically only been hitting for power this year. Kind of going through it overall at 220, 271, 416. Lackluster 302 WOBA with a 296 xWOBA underneath it, but still the ability to drive the ball. The real Gunnar Henderson is in there somewhere, and it's a good day for him to emerge. Adley's been good, making great contact, 7 home runs, solid slash line, 131 WRC plus. You get a 110 on Pete Alonso, again, leading the team at 11.93 in the home run model. Not a bad play for some power upside. Sammy Basayo has been driving the ball very effectively this season. He's already hit 7 home runs. Not really paying much of a tax, even where you need catchers at 4,000. Gives you a slightly cheaper alternative to Adley just a few spots later in this lineup. Both guys have major upside. On FanDuel, you can't have both catchers and Pete Alonso, but there is a reasonable conversation about just differentiating an Orioles stack by having both catchers and not Pete Alonso. Alonso's the priority player there, though. Leody Taveras, Kobe Mayo, and Jackson Holliday going down the lineup. Holliday returning to the team, 4 empty plate appearances so far. A lot of talent. We just haven't seen a ton of it at the major league level. Needs to put the pieces together this season, but welcoming him back at least, and he's very fairly priced. The interesting bat down there that I skipped over is Colton Cowser at just 2,300, 2,400. It's been awful over 99 plate appearances, but crushes baseballs when he makes contact. Still a 9.1% barrel, but just a 32.7% hard hit. You can see last year, 14-1, 45-7. Year before, 13-6, 45-2. Kid strikes out a ton, but he can draw a walk. Hit 16 home runs in 360 chances last year. Year before in 561, had 24 long balls. So there is very, very real power for a very cheap price from the left side down toward the bottom of the Orioles lineup against Jack Flaherty. Do not sleep on Colton Cowser, 7.97 in the home run model today. O's bats, hopefully sneaky Tigers bats. Not much interest in pitching in this game, but slight lean toward Flaherty, I guess, on maybe some more strikeout upside. It's not great in either direction. Mariners, Royals, 5:36. No way in hell we get off by 6 o'clock, but we'll do our best. As mentioned, I think the Mariners are maybe interesting from that 4.13 implied total. My hope is that they go a little bit under the radar. There's plenty of power upside, as we know. There's a high-quality stretch of righties through the middle there that we can get to. J.P. Crawford succeeds at getting on base and setting the table for everybody. They're going up against Noah Cameron, who's striking out less than 20% of opponents. 10.1% swinging strike rate, 11.8% strikeout minus walk, 5.40 ERA, 4.38 xFIP is at least closer to quality, but he's got a long way to go before he looks good, giving up a lot of premium contact too, which feeds the upside for power. Right now, only Julio above the magic number at 10.38, but some other guys closing in. Randy Arozarena at 7.6. Patty Wisdom is really interesting, and hopefully somebody that people sleep on at 7.76 later in the middle of the lineup. Really like the upside for power from Patrick Wisdom. 2,100, 2,200. I like it even better at those prices. This is a guy who just crushes balls when he makes contact historically. 15.8% barrel, 48.5% hard hit, 19.5, 54.7 in whatever those samples were back in 24, 23. Yeah, it was 174 plate appearances, hit 8 home runs, was otherwise terrible, by the way. He's in no way is he reliable. You're just looking for that one big-time batted ball event. Had a 222 ISO to go with those 8 home runs. Year before, hit 23 in 302 plate appearances, had a 295 ISO, 109 WRC+. A little bit more consistency that year, but not a three true outcomes guy. Doesn't draw walks, really. Just puts good wood on the ball from time to time. In between, you have Robbie Refsnyder, who typically we're looking for against left-handed pitching. We talked about it the other day, though. Those 75 plate appearances, mostly against lefties, have just been utterly terrible this year. Wildly uncharacteristic. I'm usually trying to undersell Rob Refsnyder. At this point, I'm trying to sell you Rob Refsnyder because he's much more talented than this, especially against the scuffling lefty. From the middle of the lineup for a very cheap price, adds value to the equation as well. Cole Young, mix and match piece against the lefty. Mitch Garver's interesting with a little bit of righty power. Victor Robles fills out the lineup in interesting ways, especially as cheap as he is on FanDuel at 22. A lot of stolen base upside there, the ability to hit for average every now and then, 12, 15 home run type talent in a full season. And then Colt Emerson, the hotshot rookie, definitely interesting. 14 pretty weak plate appearances in the show so far, but 13 of them. He does have a home run on the board. He scored a couple times. We're looking for quality out of Colt Keith in the long term, so not a bad option from the bottom of the lineup for a fair price at short. Like him even better with third base eligibility on FanDuel. On the Royals side, Logan Gilbert remains premium in my mind, 8,300, 8,700 across sites. He's striking out 24.7% against a 5.2% walk. That's closing in on 20% K-minus BB. 4.45 ERA, but a 3.55 xFIP near matching Sierra. He's just had some mistakes hurt him a little bit this year. He's just had some downside days that show more through that ERA. This is a high quality pitcher. A lot of barrels allowed so far this year, a lot of premium contact. We're over the line in all of those categories, leading to all those home runs, but that's not typically Logan Gilbert's game. So I like his upside against a struggling Kansas City team. They've got a few quality bats. You can go the other way and take some of Bobby Witt, certainly is a superstar against anybody and having a good year at a 135 WRC+. You can take some Michael Garcia, who's gotten a little bit affordable given the 5% below average 95 mark in the WRC+ category. Still has a 327 xWOBA under the 313 actual. 3 homers, 4 steals. We saw how good he can be last year. Low strikeout, medium walk rate. So that's an interesting player in a lot of ways. Vinny's really struggling this season, over 201 chances, but we got to give him time. He'll get it figured out. If you're going to Kansas City against this righty, I can't see leaving Vinny Pasquantino on the table. He's very cheap for the quality now. Sal Perez, Carter Jensen, either way, a catcher. I think you need one of those bats in your lineup, particularly on DK if you're building with this Royals team. A lot of power upside for sure from both players. Up and down performances through the season. Both guys overall kind of struggling. 102 WRC plus for Jensen, at least, with his 6 home runs on the board. It's just a 69 for Sal with 8 home runs. But Jensen's numbers came in an awful hurry at the beginning of the year. Over the last month and change, his numbers have looked pretty similar to Sal's. Jack Caglianone from down lineups, interesting given all this premium contact that we've talked about. 5 home runs. Okay output overall, but there's a lot more to come given the way that he can connect with the ball. Just needs to do it more frequently. Isaac Collins, Michael Massey, Kyle Isbell to save time. Those guys are mix and match pieces. You don't want more than one of them in any given lineup, but any one of them can service a lineup in some ways. Nobody down there is actually good. So far this year, Isbell has been the best. Gilbert, keeping the faith, especially at those prices. Really like the upside for the money. Could go against us, though. The Royals, this group historically hasn't been a great strikeout target, but there are a few more Ks in the lineup this year. So Gilbert, Mariners bats, Royals bats, then Noah Cameron. I do think there's a lane through which Cameron can succeed, though. He's more talented than he's been this year. If you get the downside day where the Mariners are swinging out of their shoes, they strike out quite a bit. It could impact things for Cameron in a positive sense. They also haven't been good against lefties this year. 203, 299, 350 for the active roster over 442 plate appearances with a 92 WRC plus and a 294 weighted on base against left-handed pitching. We know that most of the Mariners have been struggling, particularly some of their platoon options against lefties. So I take that with a grain of salt, knowing what I know about guys like Rob Refsnyder. Not that Refsnyder's a star, but he's much better than this, hitting for average, getting on base, so on and so forth. Patrick Wisdom against any lefty can absolutely mash, but also quite likely to give you 3 strikeouts and a 0. So bear that in mind when you roster Mariners, but I'm interested. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They're drawing a ton of power. They're one of the top-ranked stacks of the day. They were coming through game sims outrageously. They were drawing even more power through the Fangraphs game sims against Logan Henderson. Right now, Henderson giving up an 11.1% barrel on a 24.7 degree average launch. That equals home run upside for sure. It's only 4 starts, 18 innings last season. In a cup of coffee, 25 and a third. Just an 8.6% barrel, was excellent at limiting premium contact, inducing weak and medium. Just a 3.03% home run, but it does come on an extreme fly ball trajectory that season too, 28.2 degree average launch. So there are going to be balls in the air. Lots of balls in the air. What is that? Arrested Development? I think so. So a lot of fly ball output from the Dodgers with plenty of guys who can put fly balls into the seats pretty regularly. Shohei Ohtani at a 16.78. You just take shares of Ohtani. 8 home runs, 4,100, 6,400. They're holding strong with the pricing because they know that it's Shohei Ohtani. Even with some scuffling this year at the plate, still at 272, 399, 486, 146 WRC plus. Mookie Betts has been going through it. His price has actually come down. 44 on DraftKings, 34 on FanDuel. Sub Mendoza over 68 plate appearances, but 4 home runs on the board. At least a little power output. 12.7% barrel, great. 373 xWOB under the surface. Mookie's going to surge pretty soon, so might as well be a little bit early on it. Freddie at 47 at 3,000, plenty of upside at first base. Superstar talent from the left side. Kyle Tucker's another superstar in this lineup. They're just overloaded with talent. It's the Dodgers. Andy Pages, 132 WRC plus. Amid all these superstars, he is holding his own. 10 home runs, a 337 on base, 347 xWOB under the surface. Overperforming a little bit with the 362 actual, but even if it was at 347 across the board, he'd be excellent. Max Muncy, outrageous amount of barrels, tons of hard hits, tons of walks, on base all the time. 150 WRC plus to lead the team. 408 xWOBA to lead the team under the 389, also team leading actual. Max Muncy is tremendous. 4,800 is a little cheap. 3,400, I don't understand with the way that we react to everybody else's quality. Why Max Muncy remains cheap, but he does. Teoscar Hernandez, plenty of upside for power. Dalton Rushing's been downright interesting with the bat this year. 7 home runs in just 83 plate appearances. Major source of premium contact down lineup. Probably a little lighter owned than he ought to be because people go to the other Dodgers. And then Haesung Kim, not bad. 269, 336, 346. It's unfair to have a quality on-base option for this team to wrap back around to the top, but there he is, second base eligible too. On the Milwaukee side, going up against Robleski, I think you fire away with Milwaukee shares. They're drawing a 428 implied total. They're interesting, particularly with Churio and Yelich back in the lineup, as we talked about. Andrew Vaughn also back in the lineup. High-quality right-handed bat to throw at the mediocre lefty. Shares of Henderson, by the way, in play on both sites. Probably, oddly, a more interesting option on your FanDuel slate at 76, given a little bit of strikeout potential. He's put away 32.4% of hitters with the strikeout, only walking 4.2%. So despite the premium contact downside and all the downside of facing the Dodgers, at this price, he's at least interesting. At that price, I question the quality. Back to Robleski, though, wouldn't really consider him. He's pitched to a 2.49 ERA, but he has a near 5 xFIP in Sierra. Those are the real numbers. Doesn't really strike anybody out. Walks haven't been a problem. Premium contact also hasn't been a problem. Sub 1% home run rate. But this Brewers team, we know that their game is manufacturing runs without needing the home run ball. So love the upside for them, and I think it's an ideal matchup for their quality of their brand of baseball. You do have more power back in the lineup, though, with Churio back. Monster barrel rates so far this year. He's only got 1 home run in his 67 plate appearances, but plenty of upside for more, and has been high quality at a 110 WRC+. Bryce Turang's just been excellent all season. Gets on base, steals bases, hitting for more power this year. We're down below 9%, though, in that barrel rate that's slowly but surely been declining. William Contreras, definitely an interesting upside play. 3 home runs, a solid 294, 366, 389 line, a 116 WRC+. Just tremendous source of on base across everybody in this lineup. Christian Yelich, technically the lightest on base, but it's only been over 80 plate appearances. He'll get his quality back there, and 3 home runs in just 80 chances. Decent. 7.8% barrel. That's low, actually. I shouldn't say decent. It's down pretty hard from last year in the small sample, but I like his shot at getting back to this quality. At worst, we're going to gain about 10% in 10 percentage points in hard hit rate, because that's just who he always is. The barrels come and go. The home run totals come and go, but a high quality hitter no matter what. Only 48.36, very fairly priced. Vaughn, again, major source of premium contact in each of his seasons. Up and down output, up and down performances, got himself traded out of Chicago, but major quality, major upside. So far, 43 pretty decent plate appearances this year, has a home run on the board, major upside for power. Also, low strikeout, medium walk, so a lot of frequency of balls in play. Jake Bauers, good for home run upside and stolen base, and making great contact so far this year. Remains affordable at 45.35. Positional blocker with him and Andrew Vaughn on DraftKings, though. Still has the outfield eligibility on FanDuel. I'm not sure why they would take it away on DraftKings. It just makes this team a little easier to reach. On FanDuel, that's great to be able to put Bauers into the outfield because you don't have to go first base util with those 2 players. Renifo, Frelick, and Joey Ortiz mix and match guys down the bottom of the Brewers lineup to save a minute. Dodgers bats, Brewers bats. Logie Hendy, no Robleski for me. Don't get fooled by Robleski's ERA. Let me hit the like button for my show. You guys hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Special vet op. Very convincing. Hi, this is Jerry from Stochastic. We can, in fact, clarify that I fired Terry for giving out false information on our shows. Yep. I just lie to people. Makes sense. It's very, very convincing. Oh, there's a lot of trolls going on in the chat. I haven't been paying attention to chat much today. What's up, Meech? John Hamza. John says, glad he got fired so he could provide this content. Go back to playing batter versus pitcher and who's hot. It's just so lame. Like, come up with better trolling. It's just the same nonsense every day that, like, the people who are here know that that's not true. Like, it's just, you're just shouting into the wind. Whatever. These people have known me for years. Anyway. Rangers sub 4 implied. Angels sub 4 implied. I also love the idea that, like, you know, you could grab any asshole off the street and hand him the spreadsheet and he could speak for 2+ hours extemporaneously every day about baseball. So dumb. I will give either of you trolls the opportunity to come on and take the microphone and talk us through a baseball slate if you want to try it. Show how good you are at it. Oh, boy. Yeah, stuff, as we talked about, Vladdy is really, really good.
He's good against anybody, especially a middle of the board kind of a lefty. There was no surprise that Vlad put up 14 fantasy points. That's also not exactly an exceptional day. It's not like he went out and had a 2 home run day. BVP is meaningless. Yeah, but Jimmy Telesco says, but your house does not look good at all. Who gives a shit? Am I here trying to give you life advice? Is this a life coaching show? Am I here giving you interior decorating tips? No. What does my choice of how I decorate my house have any fucking impact on any of this? It's such a dumb comment. Who gives a shit? Like, I could go out and spend $200 on fancy fucking blacklighting, do this, turn the lights off, have purple blacklights, and be lofty if you want. Who gives a fuck? I'd rather keep my money and spend it on DFS lineups. Do you really care what the background looks like? Does that influence the quality of the analysis? Certainly doesn't for lofty. Texas Rangers coming in. They've been struggling all season. They're going up against Grayson Rodriguez, who I don't think we have any faith in right now, given the form. 3 2/3 in his first start back. Walked a few guys, gave up too many runs. There is talent there, but we got to give him time to put the pieces back together. It's been a minute, so I don't think we're going to him. I do think you could take a few shots with Rangers bats around some of their quality lefties up toward the top. Evan Carter, solid mixer for line drives, even though he's struggling right now at 164, 285, 301. More talented hitter than that. If he's leading off and you're going to this team, that's interesting. If he's hitting down toward the bottom 7, 8, 9, he's entirely skippable. Brendan Nimmo up there, definitely a priority bat in this team. 353 on base so far, creating runs 21% better than the average player by a WRC plus. Hitting the ball for high quality batted ball events again this season, looking like Brendan Nimmo of old. Even with no Corey Seager, there's some quality around Josh Young, who has overall probably been overperforming his talent a little bit, but by the numbers, he's not. 371 weighted on base with just a 364 xWOB underneath. Not much differential there. 138 WRC plus. Might actually just have finally, pieced it all back together after being down a big downturn over the last couple of years. Jock Peterson's cheap at 32.25. He's also been pretty bad for the better part of a calendar year. 3 home runs, just a 234, 353, 351. At least he's getting on base regularly this year. 106 WRC plus, and interesting enough, 339 xWOBA. We just want our home run hitting Jock Peterson to come back against a righty like this. Ezekiel Duran having a decent season at 39, 3,000. Ultimately just a mix and match quality talent, a utility type guy, but you can move him around all over the place for a fair price on both sides. So has some upside. I would play him mostly at second base on DK. Moves all over the board on FanDuel, though. Third base also works for him. Alejandro Osuna, just another outfielder. Jake Berger, plenty of power upside at first base. 9 home runs, an okay slash line. Pretty poor, 243, 289, 431 slug. Does have a 188 ISO, but that needs to go up over 200 with those kind of numbers. Just a 102 WRC plus, slightly above average, but is making good contact at the 9.8% barrel, the 49.2% hard hit. Justin Foscue, mix and match quality so far. Danny Jansen, catcher with a little bit of power upside in years past. 114 pretty poor plate appearances so far from Danny this year. I've never once claimed to be a rich top 1% DFS player. That's you claiming that, Jimmy. I have never once said that I am rich. I have never once even said I'm a top 1% DFS player. I would have to take a strong look at the results over every single sport to figure that out. I'm certainly saying I'm good at DFS. I'm certainly saying I know a hell of a lot about baseball and I could talk you through a slate. That's really all we're here for. At no point has this ever been a life advice show. At no point has this ever been a financial advice show. I'm bad with money, but I can make money playing DFS. It's like there's such a disconnect between those two things in my brain. Maybe it's not for you, and that's fine. That's the way you live your life. That's fine. I don't care about having some fancy place when it's just me. Like I said the other day, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment that I can't keep clean. What the fuck would I do with a big house? It just makes no sense. I'd rather live in an apartment in the city and be like close to everything. New York City is 5 minutes that way. Anyway, getting distracted here when we need to pick up some time. Oof, 5:55. Angels bats going up against Jake DeGrom, the class of the slate on the mound. 31% strikeout against 4% walk. DeGrom-esque 302 ERA, 306 xFIP, 282 Sierra, even better. Does give up a little bit of premium contact from time to time, a 5+% home run rate, but there's not typically a lot of guys on base when that happens. So maybe you get the solo shot out of a Mike Trout, out of a Zach Neto, out of Oris Solera, Joe Adell. Those are your premium power bats. Those are your priority guys in the Angels lineup as you go down the board here. Nolan Shanuel, mostly just a mix and match guy, is one of the league leaders in men left on base apparently this season, which is problematic for this team. They need a better bat in that spot, but he can provide correlated scoring when he's getting on base more effectively. Right now, just a 305 on base is giving them issues. Joan Moncada is an interesting enough option at a cheap price at third base. Third base is difficult to fill this year. Might as well take some upside if you're going to the Angels, but they're facing Jake DeGrom today at a 3.35 implied total. Not the best spot in the world. Josh Lowe, Logan O'Hoppe, and Adam Frazier down lineup. Any one of those guys can fill out a lineup. Frazier more likely to give you a base hit, scratch out a run scored. Logan O'Hoppe a little bit more realistic power upside. Josh Lowe kind of caught in the middle of those two things. How's that for quick analysis? Jacob DeGrom, way up top. Again, class of the slate on the mound. If you can get there, get there. He'll be popular, but who cares? Rangers bats, Angels bats. Wouldn't play Grayson Rodriguez. Can't skip the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. D-backs drawing another close to slate leading total 539. If we lose the Braves game, the D-backs will be the highest point of the slate. They let us down at a high total yesterday. Going up against Tomo Sugano, I like their chances to meet expectations today. He's coming in with a 4.02 ERA, but a 4.95 xFIP, 5.07 Sierra, just a 12% strikeout rate, a 15.5% barrel rate, feeding some power upside for the Diamondbacks. Monster for premium contact, monster for home runs allowed, doesn't strike anybody out, allows crazy amounts of contact, has gotten away with it a few times in frustrating spots, but definitely a pitcher we want to target. I think the Diamondbacks get exceptionally popular today. The top three in the lineup have largely underperformed. Well, two of the top three, as I said yesterday. Corbin Carroll's kind of on the money, but 7 home runs, 6 stolen bases, maybe a little bit lighter than we would want in the power output department, but it's not because he's not barreling the ball. It's Perdomo, it's Marte that have been struggling more. Slowly but surely starting to pull things together, though. They had some interesting at-bats yesterday, if you were watching that game. Marte at 53, at 32 on FanDuel. Very interesting to the FanDuel board at that price. He's going to be ludicrously popular. Perdomo's cheap on both sites. Justifiably so, given what he's going through, but 344 on base keeps him interesting. He's at league average for WRC plus, just lacking the power output, lacking the consistency this year, but not striking out, drawing his walks, more than capable of giving you several very interesting at-bats against this pitcher. Nolan Arenado, one time naturally I had him in my lineup. He came up with 3 men on base, me down by like 20 points from the slate lead, and did not do anything. Think he grounded into a double play. Thanks a lot, Nolan Arenado. But as mentioned, he has been overperforming expectations, including very much my own. One of the bigger surprises for me so far this year is this stretch of 175 fairly high-quality plate appearances. Been mostly over the last month and a half. He's hit over 300 over that stretch. Has been downright interesting. But I continue to think the player is overall broken. 35, 32, it's been a nice stretch. If I go to the Diamondbacks, he's in my lineup, but he's probably over-owned for what the actual talent level is right now. Ildemaro Vargas is definitely going to be over-owned, and he's also overpriced. The decline has already begun. Just keep an eye on it. He's going to crater and in a hurry. Lourdes Gurriel, mix and match quality player. They actually intentionally walked Ildemaro Vargas yesterday with a runner in scoring position to pitch to Lourdes Gurriel. I believe it worked out for them, though. Gurriel's the more interesting of those two hitters, but the two guys following him in this projected lineup, Gabriel Moreno and Adrian Del Castillo, who are both interesting enough upside bats that fill out catcher for very cheap prices on DraftKings, high priority plays on the DK slate, and honestly, guys I want to work into my FanDuel lineups, even if they're down lineup like this in the confirmed version. They fill out first base. I wouldn't want both of them necessarily, but there's power output in both of them. There's the ability to draw a walk in both of them. Those are quality enough bats down lineup that I think they get a little bit sneaky and become a way that you can maybe differentiate at least a little from a very popular Diamondback stack on the blue side. On DraftKings, you can only have one of them, obviously, so you play the back and forth game between them on price. Gabby Moreno at just 3,300 is downright interesting, though. And then Ryan Waldschmidt, their top prospect, another interesting bat. 46 pretty good plate appearances, yet to homer, but 300, 378, 400, nothing wrong with that. At 123 WRC plus so far, and some good batted ball events. So the home run will come eventually. There's a good spot for him to go find it. Don't sleep on Ryan Waldschmidt for a cheap price at the bottom of the most desirable lineup on the slate. D-backs, Rockies. I forgot to talk about Mikey Soroka, but I did at the beginning of the show. One of the top pitchers on the slate, premium strikeout matchup. People aren't still buying in on Mikey Soroka, and they should have. He's been on our board since start one. 3.49 ERA, a 3.20 xFIP, 3.35 Sierra, 26.2% strikeout rate, 6.7% walk rate. Soroka's been absolutely tremendous. He's allowed a little bit of premium contact, but really only one bad start on the season. He's been really good going up against the most targetable team. Love the play. Athletics, as mentioned, are drawing some power upside against Walker Buehler, who hasn't really allowed too much in terms of the home run this year. Just a 6.3% barrel, adequate walk rate, 40% hard hit, 90-mile-an-hour exit velo matter less on a light launch angle. Last year, on fairly similar numbers, 3.89% home runs. So figure out where the truth actually is. My gut is that it's more like last year's home run output in the long term. He's pitched to a 5.01 ERA, but a really interesting 3.74 xFIP that surprised me. 4.01 Sierra. Those numbers were a surprise when I was looking into why are the A's totaled at just 3.6? Because seems like a spot where they'd be looking a little bit better than that. But pitcher-friendly park, Walker Buehler under the covers, kind of pitching a little bit better in terms of the ability to limit runs, not necessarily the output for limiting runs. But that's where the A's kind of break at that 3.6 total. I am still, I think, more interested in A's bats than Walker Buehler. But as I said at the beginning of the show, don't be shocked if Walker Buehler has an okay enough day, or at least keeps the A's from reaching the top of the board or fulfilling some of the home run expectations. But Langoliers, Kurtz, Rooker, major power upside. Tyler Soderstrom right there with those guys. Zach Geloff reclaiming his talent this year is interesting. Carlos Cortez has had an interesting season so far. 9% barrel, 45% hard hit for the kid. 130 really good plate appearances at 345, 423 ahead of all the power, 540, a 169 WRC plus. So they're very rosterable bats going down this lineup, even in a pitcher-friendly park. Geloff's a former 2020 guy that's on his way back to that level at 6 home runs and 6 stolen bases if he continues to see plate appearances. Jeff McNeil's just a correlated scoring slap hitter type, but Henry Bolte's interesting down lineup. 31-26, major upside for premium contact events. Showed power through the minors. Really interesting player. And Darrell Arnaiz, mix and match guy. I don't really like him at short, but at second on FanDuel, maybe at third for a very cheap price. If you're desperate, he could give you a few base hits, maybe wrap his way back around to the top of this lineup. On the pod side, this disappointing Pods team facing Jeffrey Springs, who has largely overperformed. 3.93 ERA, but a 4.32 xFIP, 4.22 Sierra, 20% strikeout. Nothing special on the Springs side, but he's loosely playable. 7,200, 78 in a pitcher park against a struggling team with a sub-4 implied total. There's playability there, but he's also not crazy cheap. So I don't think there's necessary utility there. Pod's bats probably a little bit better despite their struggles. Tatis still famously with no home runs on the season, just a 312 on base. I'm more concerned about the on base, the run creation being at just 73. I could care less about the home runs if he was putting anything else on the board, but he's really not. He is driving the ball, but he's driving it into the ground. The balls he hits in the air are going the other way. They're not getting out of the park. It's been really ugly. Miguel Andujar's been interesting, 293, 15, 507, more of a average hitter than a power bat, but 5 home runs on the board, despite limited contact. Definitely in play, but miscast as a 2-hitter. Gavin Sheets, 3,000 across sites. Probably more interesting as an affordability option in the outfield on the DraftKings slate. Mix and match quality talent on FanDuel, if we're being honest, but decent enough. A little bit of power upside, good at getting on base. 146 WRC plus so far this season. Manny Machado still hopefully in there somewhere. 7 home runs, just 178, 272, 331. We've talked about our concerns for Manny, largely living around that limited barrel rate so far. The hard hits, 44.2%. Not good, not where he's typically at, but also not bad. So at least some playability there, and he's gotten really cheap. Xander Bogaerts having an okay start to his season, 104 WRC plus, come down a few points. We'll see the inconsistency, the ebbs and flows with Bogey through the season. He'll probably finish slightly above average with some interesting enough counting stats. Any given slate, and particularly if you're already going to the Padres, definitely you can work him into some lineups. If you're not going to the Padres already, not really giving you a compelling reason to. Ramon Laureano, good contact, bad season so far, had a great year last year. Right now looking like just another outfielder with the ability to hit the long ball, but just mix and match quality. Nicky Castellanos, Bryce Johnson, and Rodolfo Duran going down the lineup. Duran, as we looked at yesterday, very, very cheap for a guy with decent minor league numbers, but not a lot of there. I got to go with the power that's showing for the A's, even though they've disappointed us again and again this season. A's bats, Pods bats, Jeffrey Springs, Walker Buehler. Don't really like any of it. And we close things out with this interesting one with the White Sox and the Giants. A little bit of a pitcher-friendly matchup here. Pitcher-friendly park, both teams in the 3.5 implied total range. Davis Martin coming in the midst of a great season so far. 9 starts, 56 innings. He's carrying a 1.61 ERA. A not matching, but still very, very good 3.0 xFIP, 3.02 Sierra, sub-1 whip, 27.4% strikeout against 4.7% walk. Davis Martin's been really, really good. Now he faces one of the teams that's been one of the worst in baseball this season. Definitely an interesting spot for him. I just wish he wasn't 10-4 on FanDuel. My hope is that renders him a little lower owned on a very deep pitching slate. 84 on DraftKings. He should get wildly popular over there for that price. McDonald on the other side, like I talked up at the beginning of the show, really interesting. 22.4% strikeouts against 3.9% walks in his 3 outings, his 19 innings so far. Demonstrable ability to pitch deep into games. Like I said in the rundown, despite the fact that he's given up a couple home runs in the limited outings, he's only allowed a 1.6 degree average launch, 5.6% barrel. So I care less about the hard hit, the exit velo. Interesting pitcher. If he continues to keep the ball down, like I said, he's not Logan Webb by any stretch of the imagination, or at least nowhere near that level yet. But you could see like the mold of like a Logan Webb light kind of approach to the game and like what he can do on the mound. If he ever becomes Logan Webb, that's a massive win for the Giants, right? Not saying he is that pitcher by any means, but he's in that mold. And going up against the White Sox team that's very up and down, that has plenty of strikeout for him to go find, that relies on the long ball for a lot of their production, that's a good spot for that kid. And he's not going to be popular, not as much as he ought to be at 77 and 82. Very, very usable piece at the end of the night. White Sox bats are in play, though, for everything I said there. Still an unproven starter without a massive strikeout rate. A lot to work with in the White Sox lineup, so you could go the other way on that. Obviously, if you're going there, you want Murakami and Montgomery in basically every share. Wouldn't see building many lineups for this team in this situation without those big-time bats in it. Then you get to some of the upside pieces for contact. You're just looking to get a couple guys on base ahead of the big bats. So Sammy Antonacci up at the top. He's been driving the ball a little bit so far, but he's more interesting for the on-base quality, the hit tool, the ability to set the table. Miguel Vargas has also driven the ball a little bit this year. He's got 11 home runs. I'm more interested in him for the 367 on-base percentage ahead of Colson Montgomery, though, if I'm being honest. Chase Meadroth, you're looking for a little bit of hit tool to come through for him. He's getting on at a 345 clip. He's also drawn a 10.6% walk rate, striking out a little bit more than we expected this year, but I'll take that trade. He's been interesting. Benintendi was overperforming for premium contact and not really seeing much in terms of results for it. That kind of continues over 156 plate appearances. I'm probably more interested in Jarred Kelenic, who I think his premium contact numbers are actually more real than Benintendi's are, but he's just done nothing with them over the course of his entire major league career so far. Once upon a time, one of the top prospects in baseball. Tristan Peters, Drew Romo, just mix and matchy down lineup. Peters has been okay for this team, 2 homers, 4 steals, right at league average 100 WRC plus, and over 54 chances. Drew Romo's hit an oddball number of home runs, 4 of them, 11.8% barrel, 29.4% hard hit, shows a little bit of disparity. 353 weighted on base with a 349x in the small sample, though, is interesting. 125 WRC plus. Maybe he keeps it rolling. Maybe Drew Romo's turning into a star in front of our eyes. I doubt it. Bottom of the White Sox lineup against an interesting ground ball pitcher who's probably not going to allow him to hit that 5th home run. Dicey. On the Giants side, to attack Davis Martin, you're probably going up against it on DK, at least a fairly chalky pitcher. I still believe in Rafi Devers. I still believe in Willy Adames. I still believe in Matt Chapman. Luis Arias is a batting title contender basically every year. So you've got at least 4 guys that can give you the makings of a stack. I know Devers is going through it, but I just don't care. We've seen way too much of Rafi Devers to buy into that he's suddenly shot. We saw him go through it in the beginning of last year, ended up a spectacular season. Willy Adames really struggled through most of last year, really struggling again through most of the beginning of this year, normalized the numbers somewhere starting around now last year, and took off the rest of the season. Matt Chapman is really scuffling. That's the one guy I'm more concerned about than the other 2. There's really not a lot to cling to with Matty Chapman right now, because a lot of it was kind of falling off around the edges of the premium contact, and now that's not been present so far this season. So if you're going to be concerned about anybody for the Giants, it's probably Matt Chapman, but he's at least gotten really cheap. And if Davis Martin's going to let him make contact, he hasn't been this season, but the old version of Davis Martin used to let you make a lot of contact. Maybe Chapman gets into one and turns things around. Eldridge is interesting because he's a premium prospect at a very cheap price, $2,200, $2,300 against a guy that, coming into this year, I would have called a quad A type of a pitcher. There's at least a little bit of upside if you're already going Giants, but probably not a reason to go to the Giants right now. Susac, Bader, mix and match guys down the bottom of the lineup, and then Jung-Hoo Lee up at the top, who I skipped. Just a slap hitter, get on base, hopefully via BABIP, but not much quality there. This one's more about the pitching for sure. Davis Martin, Trevor McDonald, but not nearly as much separation between the two as the field might expect. White Sox bats over Giants bats, though. WW doesn't agree with that A's total at all. Yeah, I'm skeptical at best with that total. I think there's a lot of credit going to Petco there. I looked, though. There's no crazy conditions. It's just a normal day at Petco. So, yeah, I'm skeptical, but the under-the-surface numbers for Buehler, as we saw, sub-4, kind of interesting. So maybe it just speaks to, it's more that 3 to 5 run day for the A's, and their tail doesn't get as extended as you might otherwise expect. But there probably is an uptick given their power at like the 10-run day. Let me see it, actually. Tell you what. Pull up the old Fangraphs game sims. 6:11. This is a 7:05 start. All right. We're going to do this, and then we're going to punch out because I want to see how that models actually. I've run this sim like 12 times, but I didn't pay attention to the run distribution board. Yep. Just what I was about to say. Let me grab this. Here's the stacks board again, but I'm going to paste this down here. So this is per the, Max Meyer's still lingering in there. Forgot he was down there. We'll get rid of Max. This is what I wanted to show. This is what I was just saying, right? 3, 4, 5 runs is obviously the meaty part of your curve there based on where that total is. And then downward distribution, but then a spike given their power potential out at the 10+ run mark. So they do have that spike at the end of the long tail, which I think keeps the A's on the board against that pitcher. And according to Game Sims here, by the way, average runs 5, right on the nose. So yeah, if nothing else, I think that Vegas total is like a half run low. Maybe it's come up since the beginning of the show, but right now 3.61 on the A's side, 3.96 on the Pods. Maybe you just swing it. Just flip it the other way around. But yeah, they wouldn't surprise. If we saw the A's at a decent score at the end of the night, it wouldn't shock me in that spot. NY Stiegel, not sure if you're still here, had asked DeGrom top play at pitcher on FanDuel. Yeah, with the notion obviously that he carries a lot of popularity with him, but definitely much significant upside and a little separation from a very deep pitching slate. There are a lot of ways around Jacob DeGrom, but he's the class of the board, obviously. NY Stiegel also said, just recently discovered your thread. Enjoy you and Lofty. Different content processes. Love the breakdowns. Yeah, to be clear, I love Lofty. He's a good guy. Always got along with him, and I think he's good at what he does. So I just wanted to use him as the background thing example because he's got that very nice looking background. He was the first guy that leapt to mind. I actually had a conversation with him about it back when I worked at Stochastic. Those guys agree with you guys, with the trolls, that I have a lousy background. I agree. I just don't care that much. I don't think it matters. Maybe it matters to attract new viewers. I'm bad at that. What are you going to do? I go to shows not for the background. I go to shows for the quality of the analysis. Maybe that's just me. Hopefully that's more of you guys. Hit the like button if that's you. Subscribe to the channel if that's you. I got to punch out of here and get the site updated for the people who are subscribed over at the site, which is rotoscouts.com. Under $1 a day, weekly, monthly, quarterly plans. Get you in for MLB, NBA, NHL, and NFL. No per sport fees, no nonsense. What's even the scam? I'm giving this shit away. I'm giving my time away. People saying I'm scamming. Ridiculous. Anyway, good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do at Rotoscouts on Twitter, or hop into the premium Discord. It's linked down below. It's totally free. You don't have to be a subscriber anywhere. Join the channel. Come hang out with the community. Even if you are a troll, we'll welcome you on in. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday for more shows, gang. Have a great weekend. We're out of here.